everyone, we're back at it after the shortest weekend known to man. It's Fantastic Monday once again. The natural order of things has been healed. Francesca, welcome back. See, my weekend was short. Francesca doesn't even really get one. So how was the Bitchuation room on what I call Sunday?
It was so good. Thanks for asking. That's my podcast. Everyone should check out YouTube/FrannyFio. Bridget Todd, who's been on the Damage Report, was on, and she is just so good and wonderful. And then James Fritz, a comedian everyone should know, hilarious guy. We had a great time talking about weird anti-trans stings happening in spas in LA. That was one of the weirder stories we covered, but it was great, and everyone should listen.
Sometimes I think that our country doesn't deserve to be saved. Anyway.
All the time. Every day I have that moment.
Well, that sounds fun. So everyone go check out the Bitchuation room. Francesca, we're glad to have you back. Last week was a little bit chaotic, but now we've got you here. And it is a Monday, which means a new top 10 list is coming. And it was suggested by Francesca, who is in a bit of an apocalyptic mood based on her suggestions to me. So we're gonna be doing the top 10 things we would want to do on our last day on this earth, were it to be, under threat of destruction like that could ever happen.
Before Jesus comes.
Exactly, before he touches back down on earth. Here are the things we're gonna do. So that'll be up on our YouTube channel a little bit later on today for our tier 2 and tier 3 YouTube members. So look forward to that. And look forward to, through the course of this hour, we are fresh off of a CPAC, so I had to absorb a lot of that fresh hell, and now I'm going to, like in the movie It Follows, pass it on to you. And so we're gonna talk about what happened at CPAC. We also have an absolutely massive Meanwhile In coming up in our last third of the show, so look forward to that. It's news from around the world and out of this world, so that should be exciting. As well as, let's see, we've got a Karen, a repeat Karen. When have we ever had a Karen that had previously been discussed on the show? But we found one today, as well as some other news. It'll be fun and awesome and all that. And thank you for being here, everybody. Please hit the like button, share the stream if you haven't already. And as we go through, if you want to send us super chats, tweets, comments, anything like that. I see that a hype train has started on Twitch. Thank you very much, Ghost Dog, for resubscribing. Much appreciated. We will respond as we go. But that said, Francesca, are you ready to do this thing?
Yes.
Now, I always ask that question and you just sort of rotely say yes, but it's about to get weird. You don't actually, I'm gonna go either way. Okay. So hold on your butts, buckle up as we launch into this. And by the way, let me just say right off the bat before we really start, I have been waiting to talk about this for like 3 days now. So sorry, it's gonna happen. The secret plan to get Donald Trump back into the presidency has been revealed. It is very, very simple. So simple that it could fit on a business card. And it's been distributed in CPAC, so not that secret anymore. But we're gonna break it down because if you don't want Trump back as president, you need to be prepared to do whatever is necessary to stop this plan, which is definitely coming. So it's a 7-part plan. The first part has multiple parts, as you'll see. So here it is. Reveal Achilles' heel. Pull back the curtain on the horror show that is today's Democrat Party, in quotation marks, which means he doesn't respect it. Watch Pelosi melt like the Wicked Witch of the West. See the Black Caucus and other key groups flip unexpectedly and watch the tables turn. That's one part.
I've got to do sound effects.
A lot.
As you go, I'm doing sound effects. Okay. Tables turn. Wicked Witch of the West. Oh no, what a world. Oh, my Manolo Blahniks in my big fridge.
I love that it's like, no, here's a serious plan to replace the president. Okay. But it's so petty that like they have to call Pelosi the Wicked Witch of the West. They have to put quotations around Democrat Party. It's one part that incorporates pulling back the curtain, watching Pelosi melt, multiple groups flip, and then the tables turn. That's part one.
Yeah, it feels like part one has like about 4 parts to it. But anyway, keep going. Yeah.
And what's pull back the curtain? Well, but I want to do this. I want Trump to be president again. I want patriots to soar like in your website. So how do I do that? I don't know how to pull the curtain back. That's vague. You need to be specific.
Well, it's all an allegory. I mean, it is all an allegory. I mean, it is all just what's the movie? I'm like Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
You're speaking of The Wizard of Oz.
Thank God it hasn't been canceled yet.
I know all wizard stuff in
I know, yeah. So this is just Oz. So it's like turn into a dog, pull back curtain of Wizard of Oz. Then wait a minute, I'm just describing the Wizard of Oz. Let's keep going and see if it continues along that pattern.
Yes, so a couple of other issues. I love when you can't even have like internal consistency in the logic of your argument. So part 1 of the plan to get Trump back says, see the Black Caucus and other key groups flip unexpectedly and watch the tables turn. But wait, why is it unexpectedly? It's part 1 on your plan, dude. You expect it, you put it on the card. But anyway, that's part 1. Part 2 is witness a trusted conservative elected as Speaker of the House and finally reveal suppressed results of existing investigations into election racketeering. So apparently there are already these investigations that trumpcard.patriotsword.com knows about, but nobody else does, so that's cool. Number 3 is correct the official record, reveal that Trump legitimately won the 2020 election. That's at least concise, so I'll give them credit for that one. It's nonsensical, but it's concise. Then 4, the Speaker of the House drafts articles of impeachment for Biden-Harris. Okay, I could imagine that. That's something that could actually be done. Number 5, citizen Donald J. Trump. Why is he citizen Donald J. Trump? Anyway, citizen Donald J. Trump is placed into the line of presidential succession behind the vice president by electing him Speaker of the House. So
what?
But then why did you have the other person become speaker first? It's just needlessly complex. This is the sort of thing that like, you get people in the writer's room and you start to cut, kill your darlings, that type thing. You don't need 2 speakers.
But I love that like, he's like kind of being constitutional about it,
Yeah, a little bit.
Like, so the election was stolen and we're gonna prove that it was stolen, but we're gonna get back into power very constitutionally. First he's Speaker of the House, and then, then we will kill the first 2 in line, no, impeach the first 2 in line, and then he will become, you gotta do it by the book.
Yeah, that's gonna fall apart in a couple of minutes. But yes, I do like that they want to at least, I think they start to get the idea that, wait a second, are we straying too far from our supposed love for the Constitution? Let's pretend we care about it. Yeah. But anyway, then Speaker of the House Donald J. Trump then calls for a vote to impeach, charge, and remove imposters Biden and Harris. Okay, that could potentially happen. So then, and this is where it goes straight into fantasy land. Duly impeached. Don't write duly. Like, I know what you're doing. You think that it's like, well, this is more official because I wrote duly. Anyway, duly impeach, charge, and remove Biden Harris, whereby it's thereby, douche, thereby rendering all acts of said imposters while in office null and void and of no effect. That's not true. That's not how that works. Trump got impeached twice. It didn't whereby anything. So anyway, then duly elect President Donald J. Trump. Well, why is that not part 8? You're talking about electing a new president. Like that should be its own part.
I love how like we're correcting this as if it were real, number 1, and not trumpcard.patriotsword.com. And also that that other people at CPAC were like, no. See, it's 1 step, September. Like he's coming back like Jesus. Like it's just, they're like, why is there all this? Also, if we're going with his logic, to be Speaker of the House, you gotta get elected to the House. That's how the House works.
Yeah, I don't know. Supposedly it's not clearly delineated, and supposedly somebody who's not a representative could become. It's never happened, but I don't think that's the craziest thing in this. There's several crazy things, but anyway, as we've alluded to, it was made by a group called Patriot Soar. I think that's a mistranslation. I think it's Patriots Are High, and they translated as Patriots Soar based on the content of this.
Icarus Patriots, flying too close to the sun.
So look, the group behind the 7-point plan to reinstate Trump, if you've read their 7-point plan, you probably get an idea that these are not necessarily very credible, reputable people. But if the message hasn't really gotten across, I want to give you a little bit of one of the videos on their website. It's 14 seconds. I feel like if it was 20, you'd be driven mad. You'd tear your eyes out of your head. But here's 14 seconds of the guy that he knows how this unprecedented thing in American history is gonna happen.
Our deep research into the swamp at Harvard grew to include the whole Democrat playbook and Democrat skeletons to rock her world. At long last, Nancy will be speechless.
That guy has definitely sacrificed children in his basement. There's no chance. Like, you can't walk across his basement and not be on baby bones the whole time, basically.
That guy has to meet and greet his neighbors in like a legal way. Like, yes, I was convicted and did serve some time, but I'm reformed now. And that is a beautiful child you have. Anyway.
Graphic design and set design is his passion.
His child is filming that as we speak.
Yeah. Now, you might think, if we could bring up that video, you might look at that and think that he got the white balance on his camera wrong, which is why he's all red. No, that's because he's being lit by children on fire behind the camera. Anyway, yeah, no, not necessarily super serious, but I do love the little ways how they reveal themselves. Like, so there was the Pelosi melt, like the Wicked Witch of the West. So the part that got him most excited there, you'll note, was, and finally, Pelosi will be silent. He was just so happy about a woman not speaking anymore. That was like the thing that got him going there.
This is like, I just have to say, political conferences are hilarious because they always have crazies that are like, hey man, look at our 7-point plan. And you're like, okay, I'm good. I'm going with, it's like the 5-minute abs instead of the 7-minute abs. We're gonna go over here for the 5-minute plan or the 5-step plan. But it is always, they're so littered. The left has them too. We're not above this. There's always someone who's like, hey, so here's what we gotta do. We just melt all of the coins in the country and then we abolish money, bro. And you're like, no, I'm gonna go to my next panel now. You can stop following me. Like it's just like, I love the way that the weirdos come out to political conferences. We've got the best fans, guys. We're real. Political nerds are always a little weird. I mean, look, it's better than being into like something like, Nazism, but we, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Look, everybody needs an interest. Like there were people who could probably fill a business card like that for all of the reasons that the argument that the Eagles could have just resolved the Lord of the Rings thing isn't true. Like everybody can get invested in something. The issue with this, and by the way, I find some of those arguments convincing. Anyway, this is sort of about the real world, which makes it a little bit scarier. Like there are people who are crazy at Comic-Con too, but they're not trying to control the world, But they're as the same insanity.
It's the same cosplay. Like Comic-Con is arguably way more fun and way more harmless. And those people actually have their feet. Yeah, they have their feet on the ground at least. Like, they're not actually cosplaying to overthrow a country. They're just cosplaying to be, I don't know. What Rosario Dawson in The Mandalorian? I can't remember that character's name.
Ahsoka Tano. Anyway,
thank you.
Yes, if you find, by the way, my final advice to you, if you find yourself maybe at like Politicon or something, in an elevator with the Patriot Store guy, just start screaming as loud as you can because you only have a second or two. Anyway, okay, we're gonna take our first break. When we come back, we have a little bit more of the substance of CPAC, their stance on vaccines, and maybe a tiny bit of Trump. Not much, but a tiny bit after that. Hey everybody, I just saw Circle Strats in Twitch subscribe for the 14th month. That's about as long as anyone. I think there was 115, but 14 months is a good long time. So thank you for that. Thank you over on YouTube to our new members, Kathy Harvey and Stephen Cody at tier 1 and Pyromaniac at tier 2, much appreciated. Tier 2, you get that top 10 list, which is coming up just a little bit later on today. I really think one of the reasons I like doing these is to learn a bit more about Francesca and how you would spend your last day. I think we can learn a lot from that. I could not even begin to predict what she's gonna put there. Okay, Leslie K says, I saw a guy at a restaurant yesterday wearing his Dragon Squad t-shirt. I had to resist the urge to run up and introduce myself. That's awesome. I was overhearing as I was getting my coffee ready before the show, you guys talking about how like the number one place to get recognized for TYT is Trader Joe's, which sort of makes sense. The last time I was at a Trader Joe's, one of the guys did say hi to me actually. So small world. Nice. Thank you, Trader Joe's.
I only get recognized by workers, like it's always like cooks, people like work in the door. It's always the best people and
workers of the world unite.
Yeah.
Non-human humanist says anti-vaxxers fear mongering about door-to-door forced vaccinations. I grew up in a country with mandatory vax program. FYI, even there is no one forced people can opt out. Socialized medicine bad. Yeah, see what conservatives like. Their number one thing is fighting against tyranny. What they're willing to accept is fighting against hypothetical tyranny that we make up. Like Biden isn't taking your guns. He has no interest in any of that. And so what they've come up with is they're gonna make you all get vaccinated. And that is the infrastructure to eventually steal all your guns. Like it is so many steps removed now. Well, we'll get to that. Anyway, Franklin Sharpslicer sent in a big super chat saying, so cards at CPAC passed out, cards on how to reinstate, whisper in his ear, it's too late. Welcome Francesca to TDR. You are better news by far. John, you are transformation into dragon tea. Might be one we send to margarine, you see. Lizard people you'll be. That is, his poem makes more sense than the 7-point card being passed out at CPAC. So thank you, Franklin. May Money in the Building says, why was that fool whispering? Hey, Fran, you still be the bestest of the best. Thank you, May Money. Yeah, the guy was just being so creepy. And the red background, that's a weird choice. Anyway, Denkar says, first step in defeating their plan, try to stop laughing. But it's difficult. It is difficult. Anyway, over on Twitch, Kelly June subscribed for 12 months, says happy birthday to me. Guess what? I love my Dragon Squad family. Happy birthday, Kelly June. Thank you for the year of being a subscriber, much appreciated. Steph Mont gifted a tier 1 sub, thank you. Smetty Dragon subscribed for 8 months and says 8 months, Franny got me resubscribing again. Oh, and hi Don. Don Latino Heat subscribed for 7 months, thank you. The Only Dragon Allegra. Allegra, by the way, recently sent in an awesome care package to the studio. Thank you, Allegra. Subscribed for 12 months and says, John is the best, so suck it, Francesca. Allegra thinks I'm the best, so have fun with that.
Well, I'm gonna be there this afternoon and eat all of the care package, okay? That's right. Yep.
No, the food's already been eaten from the care package, don't worry about that. Anyway, Mother Effin' Woman Dragon gifted a tier 1 sub, thank you. Ms. Frazzled gifted 1 as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for participating in Subs Day. Anyway, more news to come after this. Okay, everybody, let's get even weirder. Obviously, vaccination was a popular topic at this year's CPAC, although not for the reasons one might hope. Here is Alex Berenson, formerly of the New York Times, they love to say, talking about Biden's success at vaccination.
They were hoping, the government was hoping, that they could sort of sucker 90% of the population into getting vaccinated, and it isn't happening, right? There's a.
Okay, so he said that the nationwide effort to get people vaccinated so that they don't fry from COVID was a belief that they could sucker people, and because they haven't, that led to applause from the audience. So it wasn't just, by the way, I'm in the audience, I don't want to get vaccinated, I'm not gonna do it, that's my right. It's, I'm happy other people aren't protected against COVID.
Francesca, quick follow-up, sir, are you vaccinated? Well, yeah, but I'm easily duped. That's why I am a grifter trying to dupe you. See, I can't get a real job. No, I don't know this guy. Apparently he's got a long history of all kinds of COVID misinformation. But it is a self-defeating strategy to continue to lie to your base and tell them to not get vaccinated. Why? Because they might die. And if you're relying on them to vote you into power and to herald your conservative views, you might need them alive. We've been over this territory many, many times in the year 2020. And to be fair, Trump lost. So now I'm not saying that's because people weren't around to vote for him, but let's just be real. Like, if you're already gonna isolate Latinos, people of color, African Americans, women from your entire party, that's not gonna be part of your strategy. You need all the people you can get because we're growing.
Yeah, I partially disagree with you about that they need to wise up to the fact that they're killing their audience. I think that we need, like, for all the joking, and like I feel the need to laugh right now. We need to be very serious. They have made a calculation. They have looked out there. They have tracked the news day by day, week by week, month by month, and they have made the determination that it is better for them to use this as a rallying cry, even if, to make the omelet, you gotta crack some conservative eggs. Not enough people are dying for them to turn against it. If COVID was killing, 100,000 conservatives a day, I think they'd turn against it. But they are very, very comfortable with the number of people who are dying based on their strategy right now. In the pre-show, I talked about a nurse in Louisiana who had spent the last year talking about how the vaccine won't be safe. The lockdowns are just social experimentation, and she died of COVID. So like that is just one person, and obviously there's hundreds every day, and the numbers are going up now. They have made the determination, we can afford to lose these people. Every one of them, they're fine. Alex Branson does not give a damn about that nurse that just died. This is his grift. He values the money more than people's lives. That is not my speculation or whatever. It is a simple, that is just a reflection of what we're seeing. Now really fast, what do some of the more responsible people think about the fact that this is what CPAC was getting up to? Well, here's Dr. Fauci being asked about the video we just showed you.
It's horrifying. I mean, they're cheering about someone saying that it's a good thing for people not to try and save their lives. I mean, if you just unpack that for a second, Jake, it's almost frightening to say, hey, guess what? We don't want you to do something to save your life. Yay! Everybody starts screaming and clapping. I just don't get that. I mean, I don't think that anybody who's thinking clearly can get that. What is that all about?
Well, look, the regular people, I think they've been duped. They grew up and were educated in America, so they don't know much about science or medicine to begin with. And they have been told by literally every person they trust that it's better to be exposed to the virus. And I'll say again, I don't like Francesca to like, hey, I got a prediction right or whatever, because I often don't. But I said that they would do this hard turn back in December when Tucker started doing the first steps of it. And now it's just the most uniform thing. They're all against it. Every one of them want you to simultaneously give Trump credit for getting a vaccine and make sure that nobody ever gets it because it's a commie plot from Bill Gates and Satan.
Yeah, and look, it matters because if it's not COVID-19, it's COVID 2022. It's a new pandemic. It's something else, right? Healthcare scares and anti-science beliefs will continue and continue and continue until we actually address it. And for me, I'm scratching my head being like, what do we do? And honestly, we pay teachers more money. We pay them like we pay doctors, and we have tuition-free colleges and universities. That's it. That is literally it. Yes, obviously free trade schools as well, but we invest in the brains of Americans because the vultures are openly eating them. The zombies are after our brains. And if we care about actually educating the future of this country so that people are not so duped by Fauci's right. Look, people aren't thinking clearly because they're in a cult. You might be in a cult if, right? Like there's a global pandemic and you are convinced, despite all the evidence, that a vaccine doesn't work. So the answer is just investing in education and teachers and getting people the tools to even understand facts. People now are like, facts somehow are politicized and they feel attacked by them. Like, oh my God, how dare you hurt me with your facts? Like, no. Education and information aren't there to hurt you. It's there to help you.
Yeah, there was a guy on one of the news networks who was like, they're not seeing the evidence. They're just seeing attacks. They're being called ignorant.
Yeah.
And like, so first of all, I thought facts don't care about your feelings. I thought that was the conservative thing. They're not all soft-hearted like lefties. They just take the actual evidence. Well, apparently not. And also that I don't even know which guy that was, but it was absolute BS. There has been all of the evidence that's needed has been put out there. We unfortunately have a very large, well-funded, influential media operation that doesn't give a damn about that. And by the way, why does this matter? Well, I want you to take a look at this picture. It's a fun little curve. And what's that curve? Oh, it's the COVID test positivity rate jumping up once again. It's doubled in the past couple weeks. And new cases are up 66% in the past week, with infection rates rising in 36 states. Not everywhere, because quite a few places are very well vaccinated. But in some places, like Louisiana, a lot of these southern, more conservative states, you are seeing cases go up once again. I believe Missouri is actually like the COVID capital of the US right now. So it matters. It matters.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump to a different topic. CPAC is a great spot. CPAC is a great spot to try to build a reputation for yourself, try to get a little bit of like traction. And Lauren Boebert wants some of that. Here is her best shot.
We're here to tell government, we don't want your benefits. We don't want your welfare. Don't come knocking on my door with your Fauci ouchie. You leave us the hell alone.
Okay, so there was an awkward pause between her turn for the applause before the applause finally started, and that was uncomfortable. But in her defense, she seemed totally unaware that was happening, because she was smiling like she had just nailed this thing. Okay, what do you think? In the the sort of Sarah Palin school of conservative female grift, how do you rate that? How's she doing?
I mean, I thought Honey Boo Boo did it better. If we're going strictly with like which toddler deserves the tiara, I feel like her walk was too rehearsed. Her lines were very rehearsed, and I think there are other children who deserve this more.
I think, yeah, you're just smile through it is like rule one of the pageant world. So she got that, but no, there wasn't a lot of spinny. It gave me strong cinema vibes, actually. Like I expect your Fauci ouchie, man. Like I expected one of those. And also,
Fauci ouchie.
She said Fauci ouchie.
She said ouchie. But now, are we not getting vaccinated because it hurts? It ouchie? I thought you were all alpha. I'm an alpha male. I'm a big strong man. No, come out with me with the Fauci ouchie.
Like she's saying, we don't want the vaccine, which, look, if you're gonna take that stance, that is a serious thing. You're saying the best defense we have against something that's killed over 600,000 Americans, we're gonna turn against it. And the way you communicate that is, we don't want your Fauci ouchie. Are you a baby? Like, I don't wanna speak like Donald Trump, but are you a little baby? That's something you joke about, but you're not joking right now. You're saying, this is your big applause line. This is super serious. Why are you saying Fauci ouchie? Anyway, yeah, that wasn't very good.
Yeah.
That just wasn't very good. But she did try to make a substantive point there, aside from the Fauci ouchie and the weird spins and everything. She tried to say, we don't want your welfare. We don't want your government assistance and all that. So there are a few factual issues with that, which we'll turn to. But first, I do want to allow someone to respond to that who's a little bit better at combining substance and flair. So that's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who responded to that video saying, tell him loud and proud, girl, GOP will strip your unemployment protections and dismantle any semblance of a public safety net we have left. Then make working people pay more for everything on low wages while Wall Street gets a meal ticket. Good old conservative values, baby. That's pretty good. That is, I think, a fairly fair representation of what she is very vaguely alluding to, that government assistance is bad, welfare is bad. AOC gave examples of some of the forms that come in. That seems fairly fair.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to mention that. I mean, this is, I mean, look, we understand that, and AOC says this a lot, not enough Democrats say it, that like there is no political way that Republicans can revoke Medicare or Social Security at this point. These are programs that were called socialist back in the day when they were passed, and there was a huge campaign against them, and now people love them and they wouldn't want benefits cut. And that's sort of where you get into the weeds with even Trump voters, I mean, and especially Trump voters who, remember that Trump, no matter how much we all saw through it, said he would get something better than Obamacare to the American people, things like that. Was very wishy-washy on whether he would ever cut Medicare or Social Security. And when he did not make a big deal of it, was very, very under the table. But obviously that is the part of the Republican platform. That is part of it. So anytime that we can remind conservatives of that I think is really, that's important.
Yeah.
And Boebert's doing their job our job for us, right?
Well, by making a really sloppy, bad version of their argument. The reason she doesn't like what AOC said there is because it makes her look ridiculous, but also like she wants to say vaguely these things are bad. She does not want to have to say which specific ones because that is going to really turn off a lot of voters.
Yes.
They want it to be vague. And so AOC calling her out and making it specific is really going to annoy her and fluster her, as you'll see in her response to AOC. So take a look at this. Look at the lack of consistency in this one tweet. So she says, "Oh, please, Sandy." Sandy is what they call Alexandria because Tucker Carlson does it. Why? I ask him, I have no idea. "Ask Abuela how that government reliance is going. Nobody is taking safety nets away. Growing up in a Democrat household, I stood in line for bread and government cheese. I want more for your grandma, just as I did for me. Don't limit the American dream." So she says, ask Abuela how that government reliance is going, insulting AOC's sick grandmother, then goes on to say that her family had been reliant on the government, and apparently, thank God it was there. Because if you are eating government cheese, you need that government cheese. So Abuela's bad for government reliance. I was good, but I don't want you to have it anymore. And then says, don't limit the American dream. You know what limits the American dream? Not having the government cheese you apparently desperately need. If you need this food and don't have it, that's gonna really limit your dreams right there. And all of that was in one tweet.
What, no, that is insane. And can we just, there is a pattern. Many conservatives I've spoken to who are like, I'm against government welfare, I was on it. And you're like, what? What are you talking about? Yeah, that's why I'm completely against it. And 9 times out of 10, I'm not saying ubiquitously, 9 times out of 10, those people are white. And those people generally just don't want people of color to be on welfare. Just wanna, again, double, triple down on the Reagan stereotype of the so-called welfare queen who's got a bunch of kids and drives a Cadillac. It is so racist. We really cannot skim over just how racist the narrative is. Every time a white person is like, well, I use government benefits, right? And that's why I'm against them. So you mean you're special? Or you've got a special gene that allows you to excel, but other people on welfare don't excel? What are you actually saying right now? It's infuriating.
That's why it's vague, because then the people in the CPAC audience can fill in the gaps and be like, well, obviously she doesn't mean people like us. She means other people and they're not in this room. Anyway, I want to give AOC a chance to respond to the attack against her grandmother. She tweeted back, "Thank you for proving to the world that today's version of conservative role model is a person who mocks other people's ill grandparents on the internet. I can promise you I will treat your family better than you do mine, and I'll fight for your constituents more too." That is objectively the case. Oh, by the way, let's talk about the actual fact. So she says, we don't need no government assistance, we don't want it. Well, actually, her county did as a congresswoman. Mesa County businesses received more than 4,500 loans through Paycheck Protection Program. And new claims from Colorado residents applying for federal pandemic unemployment assistance have nearly doubled since late May and tripled since the 1st of May, according to the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. So are those bad people? Those people who desperately need unemployment assistance, those businesses that desperately need the government to help keep them afloat during these terrible times? Apparently there's something wrong with them, some moral weakness or something, that they're accepting this aid that nobody else needs, except, in her own words, she and her family did when she was young. But somebody's bad, I guess. Anyway, really, you know what? We're skipping it. The next two graphics, the nonsense with the Nazis. By the way, so my point was going to be, Marjorie Greene got in trouble for comparing people who might have to take vaccines against their will to the Jews in the Holocaust. Now everybody does it. She did it. Madison Cawthorn is doing it. They're all just saying that it's Nazis. So we've moved fast as a country. Now that said, you want to move on to something else? I don't think you're gonna like it, but let's move on to this. CPAC conducted their big straw poll. Who is going to be the 2024 candidate? Who do they love now in conservative circles? Well, we'll have those results for you coming up, but in advance of them coming out, there was a bit of attempting to control the narrative. Here's a face you might recognize.
By the way, you have a poll coming out. Unfortunately, I want to know what it is. They do that straw poll, right? Now, if it's bad, I say it's fake. If it's good, I say that's the most accurate poll perhaps ever taken.
Okay, so that's him being charming for a conservative or whatever. He's joking, and he is joking, but like he's also being completely honest. So like the people in the audience are laughing and they're like, haha, Trumpy, that's funny. But he does actually do that to literally every poll. That's a weird area of comedy. So I'll turn to the comedian, Francesca. When you joke about something, but you're also being completely honest and the audience likes it as a joke, but won't acknowledge the truth, that's weird comedic territory.
It is. I mean, look, I've been there. I've like dunked on the entire audiences, being like, "You guys are trash. Like this audience sucks." Like everyone here is a rich douche, and they're like, "Yeah, like that does happen." I'm not gonna say it doesn't. People like when you sort of say outlandish things about them, especially when they will make far more money than you ever will in your lifetime. But this is not that case. This is there's a razor thin difference between the joke that he said there and what he has been saying for a year now about the election, right? Heads I win, tails you lose, that kind of thing. And that now he's just openly lauding it. And and that I think is, it doesn't matter that it's illogical. It doesn't matter that he's revealing his hand about his like dirty secret about how he just lies to people. It's super strongman stuff. It's like relishing in the fact that you use propaganda and you lie to people. That is typical strongman stuff. And if you're in a cult, you don't care what the cult leader has to do to stay in power.
Yeah, it's sort of scary and dark when the cult leader realizes I can say whatever I want to these people. But I feel like even in most cults, they're not supposed to say that to the cultists.
Right.
Like that's mean. Not to me, like he doesn't care about me.
If he said the thing about money, like it wasn't about money. If he was like, and then I send you the emails and then you check the boxes and then we just charge your credit card like 6 times. If he had gone there, I know he does that. They do that.
No, I know he does it in reality. I feel like he could have told that joke. And like
maybe.
I think he's got a hold. Well, let's find out how much of a hold he has on them. So that straw poll did actually happen. So Trump held a commanding lead with 70% of those who responded saying they would vote for him in the Republican primary if it were held today. Ron DeSantis came in second with 21%. So that's with Trump in. When you poll them without Trump, you don't put him on the ballot. DeSantis gets 68% of the vote. So DeSantis without Trump gets virtually the exact same support as Trump gets, which is obviously good news for DeSantis. Seems like it's gonna be a little bit annoying to Donald Trump though. And by the way, one extra little bit here, with that one without Trump, they put a bunch of other names on there as well. Rand Paul, Nikki Haley, Ted Cruz, Tucker Carlson, Kristi Noem, and Mike Pompeo all received 1% of the poll. Oh, this is with Trump. So with Trump, they get basically no support. And apparently, Tucker Carlson gets like the same level of support that Mike Pompeo does, which that's interesting. I wouldn't necessarily predicted that. I wonder if that's a CPAC thing. Like, would regular conservatives be more influenced by seeing him every night and knowing his name maybe a little bit more? I wonder.
It's a straw poll, John.
Yeah. Okay.
The fresh hell that awaits us in 2024 is yet unwritten, and my God.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I've got one more bit of fresh hell that I want to get.
But we will be doing placing bets. I will put a solid $30 on somebody. Like about who we think is gonna be the nominee.
The Republican nominee? Do you want to make a bet right now?
I don't know if I've thought about it enough. It's not gonna be Carlson. It's not gonna be Noam. It's not gonna be.
Is it gonna be Trump?
I actually 2024? Yes. 2024, yes.
Okay.
Because they're idiots.
I think so. As of right now, at least, that doesn't seem like a great bet. I think a better bet would be: will there even be a Republican primary? Will anyone go up against? Remember, there almost wasn't a Democratic one in 2016. Like it was like Bernie and a couple of chuckleheads going up against.
If Trump is in, there won't be. There's no way anyone can win against Trump.
Yeah.
But there is a way if he's not in to then, fawn over, because Trump will not endorse anyone who's not him.
Yeah.
Even if he's incapacitated from a breakfast buffet at a golf course and he cannot move for months, he will not. He doesn't even want his own family members running. Doesn't want Ivanka running. Doesn't want anyone except himself running. Yeah. And this is the thing, I don't get this, why we're always like, oh, the media is like, oh, the coveted Trump endorsement. Yeah, how'd that work out in Georgia?
That's true.
How did any
that one doesn't count. It's something to do with Mitch McConnell. It doesn't count. It only counts if it works. Yeah. Anyway, okay, so we'll think more about the bet. We'll come up with something. Anyway, we're gonna go to a break for now. If there's time at the end of the show, Trump, it's like the thing that he talks about that gets most under my skin. He brought it up again. So we might come back to that if there's time, but we're gonna move on from CPAC. We're gonna take a break and come back with more after this. Okay, let's see what's going on out there in the audience. Ray Turner, aka the Bearded Dragon, says, I have coffee, croissants, Dragon Daddy, Franny Fio, and the Dragon Squad. Does it get better than this? Well, I turned 62 yesterday, so yeah. Happy birthday, Ray Turner.
Happy birthday.
Happy post-birthday. Okay, John says, I hope designated survivor is not the rep answer. It's capitalized, so I think it's like, they basically just took the plot of designated survivor, I think. Edward Muerto says, you guys just taught me that Republicans are awfully good at getting people to want to start drinking. It's true. Nolan K says, which dragon of the Frantifa here do you think conservatives ever get tired of being stupid? Well, they don't think of themselves as being stupid. Or at the very least, they value other things more than curiosity or adherence to fact.
I think they might value ignorance, actually. I think there is a certain, there je ne sais crap about knowing that you're ignorant, knowing that there is more to a story or to an idea, but blindly following what your leader has told you. Yeah. That is lauded. I mean,
je ne sais crap would make a good t-shirt. I think we're gonna need to get on that. The Progressive Carpenter, hey Progressive Carpenter says, oh my God, I did so much carpentry over the weekend. The Progressive Carpenter says, can we please get a 7-part plan to make Bernie Sanders president? Well, I mean, presumably it could be the exact same plan. Just change the name, I guess.
We done had one, okay? Yeah. Obama ruined it. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, those were good days. It really felt like it was gonna happen.
Oh God, I can't like reflect on any part of 2020 with joy. Like I can't even do that. Like 2020, except this might be the only joyful thing I had. Mm-hmm. You people. I'm sorry, keep going, John. Read the.
Yeah, like oh man, and there, oh God, the primary,
it was a bad time.
Months of the primary being, I liked it. I mean, there was the stuff with Warren that wasn't fun, and the segment of the Bernie people who turned over to supporting other candidates I won't name. That was annoying. But anyway, they're free to. But overall, it was a good primary up until it wasn't. Yeah, anyway, Full Metal Dragon says, Lord of the Rings conspiracy hour should be a thing. Well, if we did that, I know who would be on it because let's see, Tim and Mary would have to be. We could get together a nice group here of some of the producers and editors and graphics people who are super into Lord of the Rings. Anyway, Dragon Dancer says, I love your education argument, Franny, but they want people to stay stupid so they can keep getting money. Smart people won't fall for the grift.
Yep.
I think smart people can be grifted too. They might like a different sort of grift.
They have a different grift. Oh, of course.
Yeah. Ferret Queen says, I grew up in Louisiana, class of 2004. No science classes past 9th grade, no chemistry lab, no science fairs, no evolution and selective history classes. It's a breeding ground for future Republicans. Yeah, and future needless fatalities during the pandemic. Map was subscribed for 9 months, says, woohoo, it's TDR time. And no, it's not my TYT sub, baby. That is 40 weeks, not 9 months. Well, thank you for being a part of us. Oh God, we got 30 seconds left. Ukami subscribed for 10 months, hitting that double digits. Faye Molly hit 11. Says almost to a year with Twitch and over 8 with TYT as a whole. Thanks for keeping me sane. Thank you, Faye Molly, I appreciate that. Sethian Rosen subscribed for 14 months, giving us those Bezos bucks. Thank you very much for that. Similin the Kind Dragon gifted a tier 1 sub. Top Cat Glass Dragon hit 10 months, hitting those double digits. Thank you all. Okay, our time is running short. We got some more news for you, so stick around after this. Okay, things are about to get even weirder up in here. It's very rare that one of our garbage people of the week makes news the next week, basically, but we've got that. My garbage person was a woman who had been harassing an Asian man who was walking his dog in Manhattan, trying to get the dog hit by a car. That video is up on our channel if you want to see that. She's actually back again in a video harassing, apparently, more Asian people. Take a look.
Don't yell at me.
I will yell at you.
Walking.
Are you crazy? There's no dog on the grass.
Oh my gosh.
Keep filming. We can be here all day.
You're overreacting, Karen.
The dog is not on a leash. And you can't read English apparently. Let's go read.
Why? Because I'm Asian? Are you racist? Are you racist? Are you racist?
Oh, apparently you don't have to do anything that Americans have to do. Okay, so you can't read.
Why don't you go yell at other people that have dogs on the grass?
I can't understand a word you say. Not speaking English? Because apparently you don't know that you have to have a leash on your dog.
It's the same woman. It's the same crazy woman. She might be the ultimate Karen because she just goes out all day, every day to mess with people, non-white people generally. This is apparently an Asian American who she declares is not American, Francesca. This woman, and by the way, we had already alluded to, she was filmed harassing these skateboarders, trying to stop them. Like she never takes a day off from Karening.
And this happens all the time. I mean, thinking about the instances that are not being filmed, because it does take a lot of bravery to actually take out your phone and film. You know, everyone has been in a situation where tensions are running high, and you're like, I can only imagine how much her heart was racing, feeling like she was being accosted for no reason because she was Asian. And immediately saying other Americans.
Yeah.
Can you not read because you don't speak English? She's talking to you in English. And I like, it is deeply painful and just fascinating. First of all, a lot of anti-Asian hate and anti-Asian hate crimes have been mischaracterized as happening by people of color against Asians, like by Black Americans against Asian Americans. That's not actually true. The majority of hate crimes against Asians have been done by white people. So let's just dispel that. And here you have someone, and this is the other thing. It's like it can range from stabbing to assaulting to to following, but then there's just this like rando tennis lady, tennis Karen. Go to tennis. Go play tennis. What are you doing? And like that's the other thing is like I'm scratching my head, and maybe people who know folks like this can comment and understand the psyche. Is this someone with a mental health issue? Is this someone, or is this just a racist, right? And why are you like, why are we doing this? And arguably, like, and this is the thing. I mean, I'm reminded of Sarah Cooper. And the woman in Central Park against the bird watcher. and how she like very much projected like a liberal, sentiment. Like, oh yeah, she might have voted for Obama twice. Like, there's a lot of get out energy from these white Karens. There's a lot of like maybe even voted for Hillary energy from these white Karens. And so I ask like my like white liberal folks out there, like, come get your girls, come get your moms, come get your aunties. Like, what are they doing? Why? What are they not happy about? Did you not call them?
I guess everybody has to have a hobby. Some people put together 7-point plans to get Trump reelected. Other people harass strangers in a park all day long. I mean, everybody also wants to go viral. Maybe she's found a shortcut. She knows that she will. Maybe she likes it. Maybe she just delights in the view numbers. This is her TikTok, unfortunately. Yeah, and I know that like, so as we did with the last one, we'll say, look, yes, you're supposed to have your dog on a leash. And let me just follow that up by saying, and I don't care in this context, because having your dog on a leash is not in the same ballpark as racially harassing people, pretending they have accents that they don't, implying that they're not true Americans because you don't like what race or national origin you think they have. When all of that is out there, I stop caring so much about the leashes.
Yeah, and by the way, it wasn't Sarah Cooper. Sarah Cooper's a wonderful comic. It's Amy Cooper is her name. I apologize.
Cooper. Okay, there you go. Yeah, and you talked about the woman, like she must have been scared with this woman coming there. Yeah, she had a tennis racket, and we know that a lot of this anti-Asian American harassment in New York City results in people beating the person that they're harassing, or attempting to kill them, as has happened. So that woman with her tennis racket could have been hitting this woman with her tennis racket at any time. And by the way, like we've now covered this woman twice, maybe we'll in the future, but there's like a little kernel inside of me that's thinking, is she gonna shoot someone someday? Or is she gonna knife someone someday? Like at what point is just shouting at them not enough for a woman so driven by racial animus? I hope that I'm wrong. I hope it never gets any worse than it is now, as bad as it already is. But I am a little bit worried about that. Like, people move on from like domestic violence to murder, like stalking to worse. Like that is how people work, and so I'm worried about this woman.
Yeah, I mean it's part of a racist ecosystem and an anti-Asian ecosystem, but I think which I think is important to recognize, because when there are mass shootings, I think that hashtag not all Karens are like would support something like that. But it is important to see the different gradations and the different levels of violence, like harassing someone in a park, like calling them not American for no reason other than the fact that they're Asian, because it allows us to see that slippery slope and understand that ecosystem of hate.
Yeah. By the way, Megan in the chat says she got her white belt in Karate.
Wow.
Jesus. It definitely would be a white belt. Anyway, okay, with that, I think we have time for our last story, so let's move on to that. And I love the producer had a suggested intro line. I normally don't use this, but I have to because it's too good. I don't know who wrote this, but I love it. I think it might have been Marissa, I'm not sure. Okay. America, land of the free, home of the brave, and also home of this guy who tried and was humiliated in failing to steal a stranger's pride flag. He walked all the way over. He's jogging. He sees the flag and he thinks something must be done, but I don't want to be filmed. So I'm gonna wrap my pink shirt around my head, and I think I can get this thing. He couldn't do it. He tried. He really put his knees into it.
Oh man, he needs he needs like a butch lesbian to help him take that flag down.
Well, he needs help. That's true. He needs help in some form. So the woman, it was in Phoenix, by the way, the woman who had hung the flag put up a second video explaining sort of the process that went into thief-proofing it. So let's move to that.
So a couple people have asked me how I'm hanging up my pride flag right here, and it's real simple. So on the other side of the garage door, I just have a carabiner and some screw-in post.
All it takes. You would think like it's 2021. That guy is like so confident that he will in full broad daylight try to take that, to be stymied by a carabiner. Like it's right there. Like has he never encountered this technology before? No, he had nothing.
I don't get being fragile. I mean, and he seems like a young guy, right? That I think is the most surprising thing about it.
He did look young, yes.
Yeah, that like a young kid would try to take down someone's pride flag. Like I just imagine if your neighbors, if you had those neighbors, and it happens all the time. I think that a lot of people I had a friend who had like a Black Lives Matter bumper sticker, and someone spilled an entire gallon of white paint all over their car.
Whoa.
Yeah, so it happens all the time, and people who live in like red, blue, sort of purple districts and cities encounter this a lot. And I think that shows that it is a certain act of bravery to display your pride flag,
Even now.
Yeah, somehow even now.
By the way, so I said this guy was stymied by the carabiner, and apparently that was an unfair attack against him, because there's a lot of comments in the chat that are like, hey, the carabiner was inside, he couldn't reach it, be nice to him. Okay. He's super smart, this homophobe.
Yeah.
In another
homophobe.
Circumstance, he totally would have thrown down the flag.
But smart.
Anyway, is there any, like, obviously we would not want to do this. Is there any flag that you could see hanging that would lead you in full broad daylight to go onto someone's property and try to tear it down?
I mean, look, ISIS is not, it doesn't live in my hood.
True, that's true.
I definitely wouldn't touch it though. Look, I'm not a fan of the thin blue line American flag. It's creepy, it's fascist adjacent, and I do not like it. So, but that being said, I'm also very scared of whoever would put that up. So I don't know if I would touch it.
That's also true. Anyway, yeah, no, I don't think, like, if I saw like a White Lives Matter flag, that would really bother me. But when I go outside, I just try to avoid conversations with people. I'm not going on anyone's property. Anyway, we are rapidly running out of time in our first hour. So to our linear audience, thank you so much for watching. Sophie, how much time do we have? I thought it was about, oh, we do, okay. Well, we do have more coming though. Meanwhile, it's coming up on YouTube and on Twitch. So if you're watching on there, please stay tuned, as well as some other news as well. We'll see you after this short break. Welcome back, YouTube. Welcome back, Twitch. We got some more news coming up for you in just a few, but we want to let you know that after the show today, you've got Indisputable, which is news to no one. You all know, you're all excited. Well, it's coming up. You got Dr. Rashad Ritchie. Farron Cousins will be the co-host. There's a debate with Ash Wright, and Dina Dahl will come on as a guest as well. All of that is coming up at youtube.com/indisputable_TYT as soon as the damage report is over. By the way, on Wednesday, JR is off on his adventure. On Wednesday, we're still gonna have a big news day, maybe even bigger news, because here's a bit of news for you. Rashad Ritchie is gonna be co-hosting the show on Wednesday, so that's gonna be a lot of fun. Definitely stay tuned for that. Also, wanted to let you know that we've of course existed as a podcast for literally years, but now you can get access to both TYT and the damage report through the Acast app or wherever you get your podcasts. So we're teaming up with them. We're gonna be doing some great stuff. News forthcoming, but for right now, that's another place now where you can get access to the podcasts. And JR will be back soon. This isn't like a Brett thing where he's gone for 6 months or anything. He'll be back really soon, don't worry. Before we launch into our stories, let's see. Stephen Scales in the super chat said, I'm pretty certain the phrase Fauci ouchie came from Seth Meyers. No, that's fine. I understand that people joked about that. It just doesn't make any sense in this context for her to be saying. Okay, Majid says, Viva Italia, Euro 2020. Hope y'all are soccer fans here.
Hell yeah. Woo!
Yeah, I don't know. I heard it was really racist, so I'm not interested.
Look,
so I saw something on Nando's Twitter account that I could never unsee.
Whose? Oh yeah, no, that was a great image. I mean, it was terrible, but what a good weekend! What a fun weekend! I thought it was great. But yes, there are really racist soccer fans in most countries, but definitely in Europe, big time.
Yeah, I would have watched, but I was busy seeing Black Widow. So sorry. We've all got our epics we got to watch. Okay, Jake Register says, Jay, you're a king. Francesca, you're absolutely iconic. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. I love and appreciate the work you do so much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Dragon of Borg says, Lauren Boebert took over $230,000 in PPP loans for her business, but we don't want the government handouts.
I can't. I don't want to know that. I don't want to know that. I don't want to know.
Anyway, Luminera asks the question we're all asking: does TYT not have an "I wish a Karen would" T-shirt yet? We need to get on that. I've suggested it. Apparently, when I suggested it, they had already had the idea and were working on it. It needs to exist. Anyway. Spasmodic, thank you for your super chat, much appreciated. Bernie the Kiwi Dragon says, being half Asian myself, with that side of my extended family living in the States, there is now a constant background worry they would encounter these silly Karens who just might try something. Yeah. InGen Fair says she should have woven electric fence cow wire in the flag. It would surely have done wonders dispelling such actions from happening again. No, you could go to jail. You're not allowed to set up booby traps. I know you're joking, but obviously nobody should do that. Caped Crusading Ferrets, who has a great name, says that kid's masculinity was threatened twice. Once with the pride flag and once when he was too weak to tear it down. Oh, it's just gonna make him more hateful in the future though. Anyway, okay, with that, we've got a lot to get to, so why don't we prepare to jump into this? It's time for news from around the world, and meanwhile in China, good news. Yeah, pandas, giant pandas, you've seen them. They're no longer endangered in the wild. Apparently, they're now vulnerable with a population outside of captivity of 1,800. Obviously, that's still vulnerable, but after years of conservation efforts and effort, around the globe, they are now much more common out there in the wild. Although, as we'll get to in a second, still there's some risks, there's some dangers. But Francesca, some good news. How does that make you feel?
Great. I've been told I look like a panda sometimes. I love pandas. Yeah, I don't know why. I was also really high when I was like looked in the mirror and I was like, dude, I do look like a panda. I'm a panda.
Now you've internalized it.
Yeah, this was years ago. But no, first of all, for everyone who made fun of panda porn, the joke is on you, baby, because it works. For pandas, and humans. Let me tell you, I'm just kidding. No, but that's what they were doing to pandas to make them procreate, was to show them other pandas doing it, and I guess that works.
Yeah.
Which is adorable.
I'm learning way more about you than about pandas in this, but yes, it's obviously a big effort, but we do now need science to protect them from other threats too. So one of the things they did was they helped to replant bamboo forests to feed them. So they're planting those forests, so that's good, but you need to protect those from exploitation in the future, as well as, hey, what do you know? This is another thing that climate change is threatening. So the IUCN says that climate change could destroy more than 35% of the bamboo habitat in the next 80 years. So that is obviously still serious, still something that they need to think about. However, though, if in 80 years only about a third of it is at risk, I'm gonna put that a little bit lower down on the list of priorities for climate change, because there's some stuff that's wrecking right now. But that said, we can't let all of this work go into rejuvenating this population and then just have them be exploited, hunted, their territory destroyed, and all of that. Hopefully China will maintain their commitment to this population. Meanwhile, Tunisia is now one of the many countries being threatened by a resurgence of COVID thanks to variants like Delta, Delta Plus. Their health system has apparently collapsed, and coronavirus intensive care units are overflowing, according to Tunisian health officials, who warn that it's being taken over by the new, much more easily spread Delta variant. Their army has deployed a new lockdown in some areas, as nearly 10,000 new coronavirus cases and 134 deaths were logged on last Wednesday alone. That's a daily record since the start of the pandemic. So you might see 10,000 cases, and it's difficult to know how scared to be. I mean, after all, the US has had far more than that. Well, bear in mind, Tunisia by population is 1/30th our size. So that's something like 300,000 cases a day in the US. Obviously, for a small country with a small population, that is a devastating amount of coronavirus to be dealing with at this late date in the pandemic.
Yeah, no, that is incredibly scary, and I'm still waiting on the, like, because Tunisia may fall into the category of country where the United States and like the World Health Organization isn't necessarily prioritizing them. Mm-hmm. I hope that they are, but like the COVAX plan and program, which, to be honest with you, it feels a little bit more symbolic. Like, hey, we're gonna send 50,000 doses to the Congo or whatever. Like, that doesn't feel like it's actually tackling the problem of COVID spreading wildly out of control. And it stings even more, because at this point, we just did a story on the fact that Americans are rejecting getting the virus. That we don't think that there aren't, rejecting getting the vaccine. Don't think that there aren't vaccines right now that are going to waste. Meanwhile, people in countries like Tunisia have, and Australia for that matter, do not have access, are not getting vaccinated at the rates that they should be. And yeah, it's devastating, and it is global. There is no way to, like, unless we're stopping all travel, which we're not.
Yeah,
it's still gonna be a thing.
Exactly. Yeah, and so I'm looking up the rate, and it looks like about 12% of their population is fully vaccinated, which is actually, that's better than some countries, significantly higher than Australia the last time I checked it. It's somewhere around Japan there, but it is still very, very low. It's nothing even approaching any sort of herd immunity, which means that this is a terrible time for something like the Delta variant to begin to rampage through. Not just that country, but according to the WHO, at least 14 out of the 22 countries in the region have now logged the new and more infectious Delta variant, and surges are starting to go up in even as far off countries as the UAE, Libya, Iraq, and Morocco as well. To give you an idea of how horrendous it is, they're saying that bodies have had to be left in rooms next to other patients because the country's morgues are overstretched. This is sort of like what we heard in India not that long ago as well, like that the health system is just not prepared for this many deaths in this short of a time. So incredibly serious, and I agree with you. The international outreach from countries like the US has still been very slow and very minimal. And meanwhile, In an awkward transition, meanwhile, in space, billionaires are starting to fly away from this thing. It was supposed to be Bezos that went first, but it didn't work out for him. Billionaire Richard Branson hurtled into space aboard his winged rocket ship Sunday, which is just the perfect sentence for our time. A billionaire's winged rocket ship. But anyway, it brings astrotourism a step closer to reality and beat out Jeff Bezos. He became the first person to get into space on his own spaceship. Bezos will very soon, but that's a 9-day gap. He also became the second septuagenarian to go into space after astronaut John Glenn flew back in 1998. Bezos, another billionaire, sent his congratulations to Richard Branson saying, "Can't wait to join the club." And I have never hated a story about space as much as I do this.
Except for Space Cowboys, that was also pretty bad.
That's true. This is very much like Space Cowboys. So we just finished talking about how Tunisia is being overwhelmed by COVID, and you have 2 billionaires like competing to get into the club of space travel for a few minutes. I love space. I want us to go to space, and I hate this. I hate everything that it says about our country, our world, the relationship between governments and the economy, what we prioritize and value as a society, Francesca. It just sucks.
You're hitting a nerve with me because I deeply hate space. I don't hate deep space. I deeply hate space travel and all of this stuff. I don't look. Yes, I like the universe. I like the stars. I think they're great. I think there are planets with intelligent life out there somewhere. You know where there is a planet with intelligent life? Here. Yeah, we're so smart. We're destroying the one planet we have. That's how smart we are, right? And we're arguably allowing billionaires who've made a killing off of, in part, destroying that planet. Richard Branson flying, hundreds and hundreds of thousands, millions of flights of Virgin Atlantic and his Virgin fleet, right? Like burning all the fossil fuels in the world. And now guess what? Burning even more fossil fuels to get to space. And if it were only a vanity project and all they wanted to do was go up and see space, that would be fine. But that is not what they want to do. They want to create commercial space flights for other millionaires and wealthy people like themselves, right? So $200,000 a pop, 250. Richard Branson auctioned off a seat on one of his, I don't think this flight, but another for $28 million, right? So these people, to them, Earth is already a joke. Space is already a joke. And for anyone who says there's research, blah, 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 well, then why doesn't NASA do it? Then why don't we fund NASA? But instead, we've allowed billionaires to step into the place of NASA. And I will just say, some of the research that we're doing in space right now is about whether or not plants can survive off of Earth. Why? Plants can't survive on Earth because we're killing it. Why don't we deal with where there is an atmosphere, there's soil, there's oxygen, there's water. Oh my God, all the things to make a plant effing grow.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on this. It is so egregious to me. And the fact that the media falls over itself to do PR stunts for this, and no one talks about the cost, no one talks about the carbon footprint, no one even talks about that research, and whether we should even be doing that research is beyond me.
Yeah, and I know some people might think, well, look, I don't necessarily like billionaires either, but why are you getting so down on it? I mean, if that's what they want to spend their money on. No, but this does not exist independent of everything. Branson may be international or whatever, but Bezos is our problem. And Bezos doesn't pay taxes. Remember the ProPublica leak that everybody forgot about after like 2 weeks? He pays like 0.1%. He's successfully destroyed all attempts at unionization at his plants. This is not independent of core concerns about what our economy is doing, what our government is allowing to happen. This is an issue that is not purely private. So yeah, like for all of this effort and all, and again, I want there to be space travel, but for all of this so that a few people could experience 3 to 4 minutes of weightlessness, do shrooms, man, they're here. You can get them here and you'll get more than 3 to 4 minutes of weightlessness. They want to witness the curvature of the earth. You can witness it by looking at the horizon. That's what it is. So anyway, the whole thing just makes me dislike Space a little bit more. And when I see a tweet from him, and I know that like in some ways he's a good guy or whatever, he does some charity, but like when he tweets, if we can do this, imagine what else we can do. But no, that's the thing, Richard. We are imagining the other things you could have done instead of this. Because people are dying in a billion different ways, and you witnessing the curvature of the earth ain't saving nobody. Anyway, meanwhile, in Cuba, anti-government protests cropped up over the weekend with thousands of Cubans taking to the streets across the country, shouting slogans against the communist government like "We want freedom" and "We are no longer afraid." The protests apparently being driven by the collapse of the economy, as well as restrictions on civil liberties and the authorities' handling of the pandemic. So problems that we've seen in quite a few countries, actually. But they were demanding a faster coronavirus vaccination program after Cuba reported a record of nearly 7,000 daily infections and 47 deaths on Sunday. That is a ton of infections for a country as small as Cuba. Their economy, by the way, last year shrank by 11%, hit hard by the pandemic and US sanctions, of which the Trump administration put more than 200 different initiatives to restrict the trade embargo and all of that after the bit of opening that we got under Obama. Briefly, to whatever extent the US has been able to contribute to the devastation there, we have been doing that. So, Francesca, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on what's happening in Cuba. Number one, it has to be stated that when it comes to the pandemic, they have done an incredible job up until this point, right? And it's very difficult for an economy that is forced to rely on tourism and does rely on a lot of international tourism, not necessarily from the States, of course, to endure this amount of cutback in that travel, right? So that is in a large part why the economy shrank. The other thing that is important to mention is that we must, if anyone says the word democracy in Cuba, but then still supports an embargo on that country, is out of their minds. The reason that people in part are protesting is because of the lack of basic healthcare goods, for example, that are not allowed to come into the country. Those could even be things like diapers, right? Basic necessities that aren't allowed to come into this country. Joe Biden can lift those sanctions tomorrow, and he should lift those sanctions. And every Republican conservative who wants to make this about communism needs to eat their own words until they actually drop the sanctions. For anyone who thinks sanctions works and starves the country and a population, look at Kim Jong-un. My man is not starved. I know he's lost some weight lately, but he's not starved. He's the last one who's going to starve. It is the people. If you claim to care about the people, you drop the US embargo. And the last thing I'll say, final thing on this, a lot of things to say. The US media sucks on this issue. English language media sucks on Cuba generally. And I will say that the new president, Miguel Diaz-Canel, did implement reforms that allowed more internet access inside the country, which is at this point, I believe, a basic human right. And I do think that that was a really, really, really good move. And when that happens, you might get more spread of information. There would be more possibility for Cubans to organize local protests, right? To find out about things, to come together. And so if anything, I don't see the first major mobilization in decades out of Cuba as a sign that the Cuban government is not doing well. I actually see it as a sign that the Cuban government is doing well. And I know that's a weird thing to think about, but it is a sign that there is more allowance for dissent, that people are organizing, that people are working. That is a healthy democracy. Final thing, I'm so sorry I'm going on about this, but that right now the Cuban president is blaming the United States. There is an easy way to give him not a leg to stand on if you believe that it's not the US's fault. It's ending the embargo of Cuba.
No, but like to do that, surely he would have to go through the Senate, and then you'd have the filibuster and that. So he couldn't, right?
Apparently no, just in the way that Trump can do that. He could do it tomorrow.
He could do that. He could do that. And then like he could go get a coffee, and then he could come back and he'd get rid of student loans. He could do all that like in like an hour, actually.
I knew you were gonna.
So they put out a statement. I'm not even gonna read it because it doesn't matter in comparison to the lack of action. And I'm not interested in all of the like Biden's brain is a cheese, but like sometimes he acts like he doesn't know that he's the president. And I mean that substantively, not in an Alzheimer's way. He does not do the things one would do if you knew you're president and actually believe the values that you express in your speeches. So that's annoying. By the way, I looked it up, and Cuba's population is actually very similar in size to Tunisia. So 7,000 cases is an absolute ton.
Yeah.
And they're at about 15% vaccination. I had cited Tunisia as being at 12%. I was misreading that. It's about 5% actually, so not as good. Both are too low numbers, and that's a supply thing, really, especially for Cuba with their doctors and everything. It's a supply thing.
It's a supply thing, but the thing about Cuba that actually, even though they lack basic necessities, they do have a robust biotech industry, and they have developed. They not only have they developed something that is akin to a lung cancer vaccine that pretty much allows one to live with lung cancer. But they've developed 3 different COVID vaccines. They're in like late stage trials for those. They're already rolling them out. So whereas a country like Tunisia and other countries that don't have local industry and production, Cuba has been largely, again, a success story when it comes to this pandemic in health terms and in kicking into action. And they are inoculating people.
Okay, we have only got a couple of minutes left. I want to go to, do we have that video that I was interested in from early on? Can we bring that back? Do we have time? I'm gonna throw it. Okay, thank you. Just because I hate it. During his brief remarks at CPAC, President Trump resumed a war that I just can't get past. It is his war against the windmill. Take a look.
And we don't need windmills in Texas and lots of other places. We don't need windmills. They ought to end that program as quickly as they can.
Okay, so I mean, look, at least he didn't mention, as far as I can tell, the or that you can't watch TV, honey, or that they give you cancer, whatever. Now it's just old man yells at windmill. He just doesn't like them, and he doesn't live in Texas. I want to be very clear about that. He doesn't want Texas to have windmills when he doesn't even live there. He hates it so much, he doesn't want other people to have access to renewable energy. And it's even a little bit worse than that. But Francesca, I want to give you a chance to jump in. What is it with him and the windmills? Why does he hate them so bad?
I mean, I think anyone whose hairstyle is that fragile is obviously an enemy of wind. We know this. It takes a lot of time to find your hairstyle. Once you find it, you gotta keep it. And whether it's rain or wind, it's gonna keep you inside. It's gonna ruin your day. We've been there. It's gonna ruin your day.
That's true.
But it's also anti-American to be against windmills. Windmills were invented in the United States, 1854. This is obviously a cursory Google research. Daniel Halliday.
I did not know that.
Connecticut. I feel like it was the Dutch way earlier than this. But that's only because I imagine like the Dutch woman in a bonnet and clogs and just like that little windmill like moving water around and la 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 la. I don't know, but
this has been a great history lesson with Francesca Fiorentini. Anyway, yeah, someone said that he doesn't want any competition for being chief blowhard. People are also saying, is this just the Don Quixote thing, like the cartoon, the Ben Garrison thing?
Yeah,
like now he just like his brand is hating windmills. But anyway, the reason I wanted to talk about that was to point out that Texas, as you'll remember from the horrific last winter, is by far the nation's leader in both installed and under construction wind capacity, with 46 active manufacturing facilities, 4 times as many as second place Iowa. There are roughly 15,000 turbines operating in Texas, generating almost a quarter or a quintile of their renewable energy, of their energy, actually.
Quintile.
And by the way, 25,000 jobs in the wind industry in Texas. He's saying he wants to get rid of the entire industry. It's a bizarre thing to say. Even once you get into the specifics, it's even worse. Like 46 active manufacturing facilities could start producing and shipping to other states. We could do this thing. It could be a new industry. Nope, he doesn't like it. Get rid of it. It's such a weird thing for him to say. It's a weirder thing for them to cheer. Anyway, Francesca, we are massively out of time. Thank you as always. We're gonna be going to do our top 10 list in just a few. So there's a little bit more coming with you, but thank you for being here. Much appreciated.
Thank you, everyone. Listen to the Bitchuation Room. Follow me at Franny Fio.
Everybody do those things. And Indisputable is coming up in just a few. So thank you everybody for watching. And until next time, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah, it's indisputable. Welcome, I'm your host, Rashad Richard, good to be with you. We have a lot of show today. On the program, helping me break down news of the day, we got the big homie, Farron Cousins. He's gonna be in the building, Ring of Fire host. We also have a great debate guest for the bullpen, first timer, Ash Wright, Republican strategist. We'll talk about border security, immigration, and border policy. You don't want to miss that bullpen segment. And we have a special guest, Dina Dahl. Dina Dahl will give us a legal analysis of voting laws in America. Specifically, we will highlight the state of Texas, because Texas, they had a bill at one time that would have told individuals who are on parole, you cannot vote. But that bill got canceled, basically. And people who are on parole are trying to vote and they're not aware they're not supposed to, and they're going to jail, all right? Ladies and gentlemen, my top news of the day. At least 33 cops in Detroit are under investigation. At least 33. Because these police officers, according to the report, engaged in activity to bring injury, to bring harm to peaceful protesters. Let me give you some background. There's a 22-minute video compilation that was released last Tuesday by activist group Detroit Will Breathe. In the footage, Detroit police officers are urging one another to turn their body cameras off, which should be a crime in itself. And they moved demonstrators and were violent against these demonstrators intentionally. They used pepper spray, physical force, even appeared to be compliant. Those that appeared to be compliant with orders still received the aggression and criminality from these police officers, okay? Let me take you to this first video.
Shut the camera down. Turn off that camera. Are you done? Go that way. Hey, don't get that way. Oh, damn, now you want to try. Like a real worm on us. That's that bitch. All right. I ain't gonna lie to you. Got fun. This is like Disneyland. Hold up. Now stop resisting. Please stop. Stop resisting. Stop resisting. Stop resisting. Stop resisting. Donation is not necessary. That bitch is empty. I didn't use it all. They came up with the pepper spray. I came up with a small can of pepper spray. A lot of people on stage. I thought it'd be worse. I wanted more. They got a girl choked up. Oh no, man, she can't breathe. I should have a shield and a spray. You should have a shield that functions as a sprayer. You like squeeze the trigger. 12 people, whereas with the shield, I can only hit one. Man, this one lady was up in my face when we were trying to push, and she started swinging, so I hit her with a baton in the stomach, and she was like, bitch, I'm pregnant, you just killed my baby. Then she came back like 10 minutes later, it was like, you, and it wrote down my badge and stuff, and it was like, you killed my baby. My helmet shouldn't be out here. How y'all doing tonight? I'm keeping mine on. The hunt is on.
Turning off their body cameras, encouraging other police officers to turn off their body cameras in order to commit criminal acts, committing criminal activity, being aggressive and violent against peaceful protesters, laughing about them, laughing at them, and then saying that they actually wanted more action. 33 police officers are under investigation. Only one has been charged in connection to that. This was back in 2020. This is a quote from Detroit Will Breathe attorney Jack Schultz, who represents the group in a federal lawsuit against the city and the police department. The quote says, the city has maintained a public narrative of openness, to free speech that has not matched the actions of his police force as witnessed by protest participants. The footage represents a more accurate look at DPD's treatment of those who exercise their First Amendment rights against police abuse in this police abuse last summer. Also, the footage of the actual events shows the officers sought to maximize punishment, and in some cases, officers experienced a sick joy out of inflicting both physical and mental damage on citizens. A damn shame. But see, this is not a silo. This is not separate from the system. You see, policing is a team sport. This is part of a systemic culture. It is part of a group expression, and everybody was down with the program. You think this just happened to them? You think this is just a Detroit cop or Detroit cops? Come on. It goes deeper. There are over 30 ongoing investigations into what happened. One has been charged. According to Deadline Detroit, there are 33 internal investigations into potential officer misconduct during the summer protest. Of the 16 closed cases, at least one officer was charged by the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office after shooting rubber bullets at reporters. Here's another video to show you some contrast.
You know, we have something that really works here in Detroit that not only praise the men and women who wear the uniform, who go out and put their lives on the line every day, but also our community leaders, our activists.
I never, for a second, lose sight of the fact that I was hired by a community that's predominantly African American. And when members of our community watched a criminal police officer choke the life out of George Floyd, the pain they were feeling was more than the pain of that one incident. It was the residual and generational trauma.
We support the right to free speech. We support peaceful protests. We're in this together.
Hold our officers to always be professional. And by and large, when you look at the interactions that our officers have had, they've been professional, and we've executed with precision and brought a successful closure to those events. So my hats continue to be off of the vast majority of Detroit police officers who do a phenomenal job.
The fact is, now, as we've done all of these protests, the vast majority are peaceful. And we support that. It is our role to keep them safe, everyone safe. But clearly there was aggression, there was violence. So that's not a peaceful protest.
You're right, your cops are making it not peaceful, correct. You're 100% accurate on that. So let me give you some more irony here. The police chief, his name is Chief James Craig, he actually resigned. So he retired in June, okay? He retired. And you know what he's doing now? He's running for governor as a Republican in that state. That's what's happening now. You treat people bad, you oversee an operation that victimizes black folk, that criminalizes a peaceful protest, and you don't get a demotion, you're seeking a promotion. The audacity of some of these individuals and the culture of policing. As I said before, I do not call out cops or good cops, I call out bad cops on this program and beyond. I got my big homie Farron to talk about some of this, man. Break it down as you see it, brother.
You know, I think it's a great thing that you read in that quote where they said the officers took a sick joy in watching this unfold, because that's the same thing I kept thinking throughout this whole thing is it's sadistic. When you see them standing on the corner and they're laughing about it like, ha, I hit her in the belly, and she's like, oh, my babe. That's sadistic. What these individuals are doing there is absolutely indicative that, you know, maybe it does, this profession attracts that certain kind of mindset where people actually take joy in doing these things to individuals, even when it, you know, very clearly violates their constitutional rights. Those people that we saw in those clips were peaceful protesters. And these cops still took it upon themselves to do that. And we see this, you know, unfortunately far too often in this country. And I feel at this point, I don't think this can be reformed. This job, this profession does this, and it attracts this. So I don't know what you do moving forward from this, but we are seeing this far too often. And if this is what they're willing to say, joking around on the job, what are they saying behind the scenes? What are they saying when they're all back at the precinct, or when they're out for drinks later after work? I do want to know that. I want to see how these individuals behave to find out if there is some kind of sadism running through these officers. And for 16 of these investigations to already be closed, with only one person charged, that's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous to me.
Fair, you make a great point about reform. I don't think reform is even possible anymore, because when you look at reform, it means that the formation must be intact. You have to have something intact in order to reform. If you do not have the foundation intact, what you're talking about is an overhaul. You're talking about reimagining. You're talking about defunding and putting in something new. That's what you're really talking about now. Now, we can keep saying the word reform, but that's not what we actually need. We need a reimagined way to do policing in the United States of America. It is no coincidence that damn near 100% of Americans believe that there is something wrong with policing, and they agree that there should be reform in policing. 95% of Americans believe that. It's tough to get 95% of Americans to believe on facts that are in their face. But 95% of Americans believe there is something fundamentally wrong with how we do policing in the United States of America. And beyond that, brother, one of the things that we cannot take lightly, the fact that in their banter, in their personal conversations, they know somebody has a camera on. They're willing to talk like this about individuals they should protect, they should serve. So literally you have one class inside of law enforcement saying one thing caught by these cameras, and then you have the executive side being the PR wing. They're saying all the right things to the public, but the actions, the activity of these police officers are completely contrary to the reality of what's happening. So I'm hopeful that videos like this, and big ups to Detroit Will Breathe for putting out this video. Ladies and gentlemen, we showed you a short snippet. This is a 22-minute video. It gets even deeper than what you were able to see. So big ups to them and the attorney for making some noise here. And we're going to have to clean this up, obviously, one police department at a time, if Republicans continue to be adversarial to common sense legislation as it relates to policing and accountability in America. Let me shift gears for a moment, because in my opinion, this person is part of the solution. This person is bringing actual remedy to the problems we're facing in America. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Nina Turner. Nina Turner, she's running for Congress. Senator Bernie Sanders has reaffirmed his complete support of her congressional bid. Here's what's happening. Now, this is in Ohio, the 11th district. There's this divide between more traditional Democrats and progressives inside of the Democratic Party. Nina Brown obviously represents progressives, but she also has a lot of context. She understands systems. She understands policy. She's good at making sure the message is communicated properly. She is absolutely one of the absolute best, in my opinion, progressives in the political field. She deserves to be in Congress with the rest of our champions who are fighting for policy progress every day. But there's a pushback. You got a lot of Democrats running for this seat, 13 in this particular Democratic primary. Last week, House Majority Whip James Clyburn made a move and endorsed another candidate, endorsed Ms. Brown for that seat, who was a council person. That is going to be interesting. Let me go to Senator Bernie Sanders and his support. Senator Bernie Sanders reaffirmed his support for progressive congressional candidate Nina Turner, a former co-chair of his 2020 presidential campaign. in the Democratic primary in Ohio's 11th district next month. The upcoming congressional election in Ohio has everything to do with the future of the Democratic Party, Sanders said in a tweet on Friday. Will Democrats stand with the working class and have the courage to take on wealthy special interest? I know that Nina Turner will, which is why I strongly support her. The race to replace now Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Marcia Fudge, has divided establishment and progressive Democrats. While there are 13 Democrats running in the primary, Turner and Shontel Brown are the two front runners. Here's why they're afraid of Nina Brown. I was able to find some video of her being challenged by a CNN host about the politics of Bernie Sanders, but really it was about the politics of progressives. And here's how she handled that question, and here's why they are afraid of a Nina Turner becoming a member of Congress.
The majority of Democrats who helped flip the House in 2018 were moderates. James Carville made the argument over the weekend that Senator Sanders isn't a Democrat, he's an ideologue, and we've got to get practical. If he is the candidate, he is not going to be able to help win over the Senate. And unless you have the Senate, if you've just got the White House, you ain't gonna get nothing done.
Stephanie, does practical mean that the 89 or so million people who are uninsured or underinsured in this country continue to suffer? Does being practical mean that we don't take steps in this country to deal with climate chaos and bring world leaders to bear? Does being practical mean that we continue to prop up a legal system that is unjust in every stretch of the imagination, that bears its weight down on black men and black women, and then by extension, if you are Hispanic or indigenous or poor? Does being practical mean that we don't say to the American people that you deserve better than what you are getting? That's not the kind of practicality we want. Does practical mean that you hold fundraisers and wine caves with Swarovski crystals with billionaires who want to control this system? Does practical mean we continue to go with the status quo while 500,000 people sleep on the streets at night? That's not practicality.
Damn, sister. I don't have to go to church this Sunday. I got all the church I needed in that one segment. You know, they called Dr. King impractical. They said the civil rights movement was not a practical movement. They called Social Security impractical. They called Medicare and Medicaid impractical. They said raising or even creating a minimum wage at all impractical. All of these things they told you would be impractical are now part of normative living in the United States of America. Farron, your thoughts?
You know, I think that clip really highlights a good juxtaposition there, really between people like Nina Turner and people like James Carville. Because for Carville, it's always been team sports. It's we have to win, the other side has to lose. And that's all that is. It doesn't matter if either side, does anything good or does something bad. It is, we have to win, you have to lose. And Nina Turner did a brilliant job, as she always does. She starts talking about issues. She starts talking about actual problems, things that affect everyday average Americans. And that is what the progressive wing of the Democratic Party really is all about. They don't want to get into these, oh, is it strategy here? Is it, oh, but what if we can't do this and does it translate? No, they want to say, listen, people are suffering, let's fix it. It's that simple. It truly is that simple. But it always gets turned back into team sports here, and nobody wins. Nobody wins in team sports. You win this year, you'll lose next year, and it doesn't solve any problem. So we do need people like Nina Turner, who I sincerely hope wins that primary and the election, because we need more people like her who are willing to go out there and say, yeah, cut through the nonsense that you're trying to get me to talk about here. I want to talk about the plight of homelessness. I want to talk about climate change. I want to talk about income inequality. I want to talk about all these things that we deal with on a daily basis that aren't getting addressed. And that's what we have to do. And that's what people like Nina Turner are all about. And that's why she really has to win this election.
Very well said, brother. Very well said. I support this dear sister running for Congress. And remember, we all have to start making policy arguments and shift out of the partisan argument into a more policy-centric argument. We got more on the other side. Stick and stay is indisputable.
We're very honest that we're progressives. We call the Young Turks homo progressives, and we support progressive candidates.
There has been this reemergence of political activism, especially among young people.
This weekend was the second Women's March, both across the US and across the world. So these people are not simply marching, they're not simply talking, they're also running for office. And when they do run, they're gonna make a difference.
Joe Crowley is congressman from New York. He's very powerful. Why? He raised a lot of money. But there's someone finally challenging him.
We need to have representation that advocates as fiercely for working class people as possible from this seat.
If candidates like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez even get a little bit of media attention outside of what the Young Turks does, they have an excellent chance of winning. She's gonna win. She's gonna win.
68% reporting.
The majority of Americans want Medicare for all. So I don't care what you and your corporate cronies want. What I care about is what the American people want.
We believe in total change. Everything runs on donor money. And that is what we will fight. And that is exactly why they don't like us.
We're having fun. It's election night.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has defeated Joe Crowley.
Here we go again.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Crowley. Down goes Crowley. Down goes Manafort. Down goes Cohen. Women came out in record numbers in the primaries. They said you'll be lucky to get one candidate. We now have 12 that have won their primaries. Bezos and Amazon announcing that they are going to go to a 15-hour minimum wage.
We're making progress. Let's keep going.
Many of these women made history.
The biggest victories, all women of color. Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, Sharice Davids and Deb Haaland.
And I want to go to Congress because I want to change those things.
I'm calling it. Jamal Bowman has won. Down goes Engel. Down goes Engel.
For a long time, we have not had progressives in power. It's going to be something to behold.
Welcome to Happy Hour, everybody. After a week of soul-crushing news, we break out the good stuff. Good news, good videos, good people, and of course, drink good alcohol. That's the worst thing I've ever had.
This is the best show.
Full disclosure, we did do a shot right before the show began. It says,
let's
flamingo.
Flamingo.
The reason you had trouble with that word is it's not a word.
Okay.
This is the one of everything.
I've got a rash. Could I just put it on that to see if it'll take it off?
What did you used to think this was?
Bull piss.
Drink it, swallow it,
No.
spit it. Oh, that's needed after a day like this. Cheers to Brett Ehrlich. Climax. Uranus smells like farts. Because of course it does. This is the worst sketch ever of a perp. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They found the guy. This is Sophie's super happy dog story of the week.
This dog is so precious and deserves the world. I'm just not drinking that beer.
Here's my dog. This is Onyx.
Yeah, I would just say that he's exotic because he's not your traditional dog. Still 12 out of 10 because they're all good.
Well, if that made you happy, just wait till you see the best thing ever of the week. There is a woman who moves like a horse.
Why do I want to go home and like try this?
We're actually going to show you the running butthole challenge right now. What's happening? No, that's just wrong every way. And we'll see you next time.
Hey Dave, as you can probably see, Skype froze. Frozen crashed.
You know, I'm watching that documentary on the Vietnam War, and there was a TV journalist in the middle of some tiny little village in Vietnam doing live TV as the soldiers were burning the Vietnamese huts, and it didn't crash. And that was 1965, and he was in Vietnam.
Welcome back to Indisputable. We got a lot of viewer comments. Let me read as many as I can, okay? And thank you all for chiming in. And remember, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube page. It's free, it's quick and easy. Indisputable TYT, Indisputable TYT. We're at 132,000 subscribers. That's because of you, and I thank you from my heart. All right, and also social media, Indisputable TYT. Let's get it. We have TYT member Craig Soufflé says, hello somebody, go get him, Nina. Exactly. Mickey C, the silver-haired dragon. This has happened in just about every city. there are over 500 lawsuits from members of the press alone for abuse of force. How many thousands of people were abused by the cops during the BLM peaceful protest? How many were severely wounded with rubber bullets to the head? When it is strictly against the rules to aim above the chest. Good point. Super chat, YouTube, Stacey Wilson. I'm so thrilled to see Farron on the show. I just love when my favorite people come together. You both are invaluable gems. Thank you so much. And we thank you as well. About Detroit police, Nicole Smith says, super chat, it should be physically impossible to turn off their body cam. The footage should be streamed to the station/dispatch and a civilian oversight group. Great idea, not even radical, it just makes good sense. Willie Weed says, and that's when they knew the cameras were on, exactly. Stephen Miles Cook, how can you put your life on the line when it's not even in the top 10 most dangerous professions? A point I make a lot. You know, the most dangerous profession is actually cutting trees. That is the most dangerous profession in the United States. Barbara Thompson, Dr. Richie, I just love you and your show. Barbara, I love you back. Shamira Hill says, love this show, thank you. Twitch, Octo Squiddies, where are all the good cops in all those clips? I know, right? Red Lock Dragon, the people, let's protest police brutality. The police, let's brutalize them more. Funsu, I'm sure I said that wrong, please forgive me. Farron is one of my favorite commentators. He's one of my favorite commentators also. All right, ladies and gentlemen, TJ Maxx. TJ Maxx is now going viral, probably for the first time ever. This was a really, really interesting saga. Two black women were inside of TJ Maxx. They were shopping. They were obviously racially profiled. They purchased their items. They walk out, and then a police officer who looked like a detective, not even a uniformed cop, decides to stop them, make them go back in the store, and prove that they purchased what they actually purchased. Let's go to the first video.
What happened? He's gonna sit up there and he's gonna stop us. He's gonna stop us outside and say somebody called on us that we were suspicious. So I came back in with my receipt and everything on it that I bought my. Why would I steal from TJ Maxx?
What is TJ Maxx? Not a goddamn thing.
And then he gets in here and said nobody called on you guys.
So he just said outside. You said, why did you stop me? You said because I'm black. He said a black person called on you. That's what you said.
So who was the black person that called on us? Where's she at? Where he at?
That's the only black brother that worked here.
You're the black brother that they accused.
I didn't know. We did not accuse her. So.
He just said the only black man.
Nobody? No.
Y'all don't shop at the store. I'm telling you. Especially we got brown skin.
They white. We black.
Yeah, it's a difference. It's always a difference.
Let me explain this to you.
Y'all look at all the cars that came for us.
So they had multiple police cars there. The police officer claimed that somebody black actually called them to the scene. How would he know that as a police officer? He's not 911 dispatch. I have no idea how he knows this information, but he claimed somebody black and a black male called him there or called the police. Well, TJ Maxx, the management said, no, nobody called you. Nobody accused them of stealing. And when you look at this video fully, it's a long video, the police officer literally made them go through each bag multiple times in front of the clerk. The clerk then said, listen, they have stolen nothing. The individuals got upset. They said, return all my items. Give me a refund on everything. You damn right. Get a refund. And show TJ Maxx that when you have out of control policing like this, it hurts their own commerce. So they need to step up and be aggressive against policing like this. The police officer at another point even said, you need to go in your car and let me look at the other bags. And there was a man standing by. He said, you do not need to do that for him. This store has not accused you of stealing. Farron, your thoughts?
I think what people need to understand is that when we talk about things like systemic racism, this is the kind of thing we're talking about, okay? This undercover officer, detective, whatever the hell he is, he holds these beliefs. He sees, black women in a store. Obviously, they're stealing. That is immediately the conclusion that this man came to. And unfortunately, he is in a position of authority as a police officer to make these women's lives hell and humiliate them in front of the entire store, which is exactly what happened. But this is systemic. It is ingrained into the system. And that's what has to be rooted out. That's what we have to get rid of. That's why we have to remake this entire police force in the United States. Because this, there's maybe one incident here, but it's one out of God knows how many that happen every single day across this country because it is systemic. Yeah. And this is the kind of thing that the Republicans want us to pretend, no, it doesn't exist, it's a one-off. No, it's not. This is the way things are, and this one just happened to be caught on camera.
There are some nuances here quite staggering. One thing the cop says is that a black male is the person who called me, as if somehow that makes his actions more justifiable, even though he's completely wrong. And remember, this is what we call a bad search because there is no accusation of theft. TJ Maxx confirmed, not only did the management confirm in real time on that video, the employees confirmed in real time in the moment. No one has accused them of stealing. Nobody believes they shoplifted anything. So this police officer is acting on his own. And I think once he started to act on his own and he realized that he was being recorded, he decided to stick with the narrative that was false. And what was that narrative? That a black person is the person who called me. Man, who in the hell would say that as a police officer? Out of everything you've heard a cop say, have you ever heard a police officer try to justify their presence somewhere if they are there legitimately? Have they ever said, oh, we're here because a black person called us? Never. That lets me know this cat is lying. This is my opinion. I don't believe anything he's saying because his excuse is dumb as hell. What are your thoughts, man?
Well, I have more questions about that too. Okay, when the person called you, did they say, yes, hello, I'm a black man, and I need to report a crime? That's not a thing that happens. And if he did get this mystery phone call, is he just assuming the person's black based on the way they're speaking to him? Because wow, you've just opened a new can of worms here with how you act as a human being. The guy's lying. Look, it's very obvious the guy's lying. And of course, the other officer outside the store is like, listen, no, you can't just stop. I mean, the other guy had to rein him in, had to tell him, no, you can't do this. There's nothing here. And the store clerks are doing that. The manager's doing that. Everybody there saw who this guy was. And that's why it's great that there's video of this so that the rest of the country, the world, can see who this guy really is. Because that is one of the only ways we get people to focus on it, is to make it to where they cannot turn away. And this video is just another great example of that.
Here's what else I need. I need TJ Maxx to come out with a statement before the end of this week. And I need them to stand with the consumers who were purchasing items from their store. I need them to stand against this racial profiling, and I need them to be bold about it. And I'm glad these customers returned the items. Obviously, we get it. TJ Maxx did not create the scene. TJ Maxx did not call the police according to the management and the employees. But TJ Maxx now has a responsibility, in my opinion, to stand up for their customers and stand against this bad policing and racial profiling. So we will see what happens. How TJ Maxx responds will tell the rest of the tale for me. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, TJ Maxx does have this responsibility. Hopefully they understand it, and hopefully too, hopefully they're telling the truth. Hopefully they weren't the ones that made a call, because if they were, it all eventually comes out. So again, if they're being honest, if their story is legit, then yes, they still have an obligation to these women to come out even more, to protect them, to apologize as profusely as possible, and to issue a statement that this kind of behavior in the store, like we saw from the officer, will not stand. We do not condone it and we will not allow it. You can't just apologize for the one event. You have to let people know this isn't gonna happen again. This isn't who we are. It's not what we stand for. So we'll wait and see, unfortunately. I hate playing the wait and see game, but that's where we are right now with them.
Yeah, we'll stay on top of it. Let me shift gears. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish a Karen would.
You wanna call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free, back off! I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Karen is a scientist. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what we do. We highlight the Karens of the world because Karens are dangerous. Well, the latest Karen is really interesting. She's upset at a bank teller because she's not wearing a mask, and the bank teller has recommended one of the masks located at the bank for her to put on. This is common. I go to the bank, if I walk in without a mask, they have masks available and they will recommend, hey, here's a mask that you can wear. It is a private company, they get to enforce it. Why? Because at 7-Elevens all over the United States, they can say no shoes, no shirt, no service. Very similar concept. Private companies can do this. But there's one particular Karen who claims to be a scientist, tells the bank teller off and says there is no such thing as corona.
I'm here because I will take this all the way. I am going now to court to fight masks, and you are not going to tell me what to do. Stand 6 feet away from me and do your social. No, more. You want to be safe, stand 6 feet away from me, okay? That's it. Give me your card with your name because this branch is going to hear your name. You're going to become famous. Do it now. Do it now. You work for me. I do not work for you. I've been a customer since 1990. Were you born then? Shame on you. What, this is giving you the right to be a bully? Because you're brainwashed? I'm a scientist. There is no corona. Don't make me wear your mask. Are you crazy? Are you trying to kill me? What happens if you have corona? Did you just suggest for me to wear your dirty mask?
There are several contradictions here. First of all, she says that there is no corona, and then she claims that the bank teller is going to give her corona. She also claims that she's a scientist and corona is not real. Well, yes, it is an actual virus. How that virus is spread is a matter of debate in La La Land, okay? And then naturally, she says she's going to make her famous. Well, the only person famous here is the science Karen. That's the person who's famous in this video now. This was really, really wild, obviously. And it shows the level of aggression. Now, I do wonder, where's the bank security guard? If this would have been a black male or black female, I don't know if everybody would have been so damn peaceful around somebody yelling, screaming, and being disorderly in such an aggressive manner. But I'm noticing some extremes here. That's one extreme. That is super aggressive Karen. When the privilege of Karen is confronted with an actual rule that must be followed, Karen goes all the way to the extreme. Now remember, these are typically the same people that would tell everybody else, like Sha'Carri Richardson on the who was on the Olympic team, they would tell her, follow the rules. Same people, not willing to follow the rules of a private establishment. But I've noticed an extreme here. Here's another Karen, and when she was met with the rules, when she was met with confrontation, she decided to take a completely different and opposite approach.
Why don't I walk away from her? Why don't she get away from me? She could get away. Go wherever you want to go. This is crazy.
It's important to observe Karens in their natural habitat to understand the behavior. Now, in this situation, this Karen was so distraught that she decided to pass out. I say decided because she laid down her purse, she made a pillow on the floor, and then she put her head on that pillow because Karens, their face cannot touch a bare floor. My friend, Farron, you're barely holding it together as I break down the Karens of the world.
Well, actually, I have that same reaction. My wife says, get out there in this Florida heat and go cut the grass, and but no, look, the Citibank woman absolutely just drove me wild because she's yelling at this person, saying, "You work for me." Is she the CEO of Citibank? No, that is not a government entity. Now that's a discussion we can have. If you think the banks should be owned by the government, then sure, those people would work for you, and a lot of us would be okay with having that happen. But no, that person does not work for you. You're there utilizing their services. You want something that the bank has to offer. You have to abide by the rules they put forth. The other one though, just the laying down like, I can't take this anymore. I suddenly have to take a nap. Look, these people are so weird that it's difficult to really get a good analysis on why they do this. I mean, I'm sure people who know a lot more about this than me, the psychology of it all, but there's something wrong with us throughout the country. Why we have so many videos like this coming out constantly. There's something wrong with America. And I think Karens, are right close at the top of that list here.
One day, man, I'm going to do a show, bring on a psychologist to break down Karenicity. And we want to know where it comes from and how it can be treated, okay? All right, my job is to not only expose Karens, but I want to make sure they get the help they deserve, all right? That's what we want to do here on Indisputable. Okay, this was quite interesting. CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Committee, oh my gosh. It was an ish storm inside of another ish storm. It was ridiculous, it was crazy. It is not CPAC, it is TPAC. It is really Trump's Political Action Committee. But they had their yearly celebration. Trump won the straw poll, but I always question individuals who represent a policy ideology adversarial to their actual community or the community that they belong to. Let me bring your attention to Caitlyn Jenner. Caitlyn Jenner was at CPAC. Caitlyn Jenner is running for governor. Caitlyn Jenner is a Republican. Caitlyn Jenner was hit with transphobic abuse while attending CPAC. Really no surprise. While attending Conservative Political Action Conference, a heckler filmed himself repeatedly calling her a sick freak. The former reality TV star is running in California's recall election against Governor Newsom. Now, let me be very clear. My criticism here is how can you bridge a policy point of view that is squarely antithetical against who you are? In other words, how do you get down with folks that don't get down with you? That's my question here. And that is a policy question. In her first press conference, many of you remember this. In her first press conference since announcing her candidacy, Jenner recently said, and I quote, "I am a private citizen of the state of California. I have every right in the world to be able to run for this office. And I am on the Republican side. Obviously, I'm on the Republican side. But they're not on your side." Here's some of that video.
Excuse me, Bruce. I don't want to picture Bruce. Bruce.
Just run ahead of us. Yeah. Just run ahead so we get there. Yeah. Just go up a little bit. Go to that CPAC side. Check your phone.
Bruce, what do you think about the stuff that they're teaching in the schools?
There we go.
Just real quick.
Go get it. All right, ready? Right here. Dropping. 1, 2.
Hey, Bruce. Bruce,
here we go.
What do you think about the stuff that they're teaching in schools regarding the LGBTQ? About Jesus Christ, Bruce. Don't forget about Jesus. Look at that sick freak. Why do people want a picture with him?
I don't get that.
These are conservatives, right? This is what we came to.
That's the problem with.
Why do we want a picture with? Why do we want a picture with the supposed to be conservatives?
I'm gonna go ask these people.
Bigoted, adversarial to a person's lifestyle, and then openly critical and utilizing terminology that has been considered bigoted against individuals who are different than you. Now that is basically the Republican way. My question is, how do you coexist in a political structure that says you should not exist? Farron, what are your thoughts on this?
You know, that's exactly what I was gonna say. This party doesn't believe Caitlyn Jenner should exist. And yet she still shows them this loyalty, you know, running for office as a Republican. Of course, you know, support is terrible for her. She doesn't have a chance at winning. But to subject yourself to this kind of abuse, to ally yourself with the people who think this way about you, all for what? Tax cuts? I mean, is that really worth it? Because honestly, at this point, that is the only thing I can think of as to why Caitlyn would put herself through this, is just because she wants more money from the tax cuts. You know, she's the one who mentioned, you know, months ago, whatever, that, oh, the person in the private jet hangar next to me is leaving California because of the homelessness. It's sick, and I guess it's because of the tax cuts. I don't know, but it's sick.
Yeah, and even the tax cut argument on policy, to me, Republicans lose that argument as well.
Yeah.
I don't have time to get into all of it. My brother, thank you for joining me today. Tell people how they can follow you, man.
I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Fair and Balanced. The YouTube channel, of course, youtube.com/The Ring of Fire.
You do amazing work, brother. I binge on your stuff all the time, man. Thank you for all that you do for us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
Came in late to watch TYT Old School, and I hear Cenk Uygur talking about napkins. Is this the kind of nonsense Anna Kasparian was talking about? Gotta love membership privileges. Gotta love them.
Please have Dave on every 4 episodes or so.
Watching Ben Mankiewicz and Cenk Uygur on Old School talking is exactly like watching Seinfeld and George. I'm not sure if that's a compliment.
Who's on Old School today? Is there one? At Dave Kohler. I hope it's not Brett Ehrlich.
This episode of Old School has killed me. Who knew a conversation about good and bad underwear could be so hilarious and relatable?
Couple things about this video. Dave Kohler looks so badass.
There's more than a 73% chance this Old School will be really funny. Cenk Uygur has been up since 4 a.m, so he's tired. Hence, everything will seem funnier to him. P.S. Remember, food talk, new words, and no or very little politics.
Dave Kohler, enjoyed performance on Old School. Can we please hear about your time as a geologist? One geologist to another?
I appreciate that all these people enjoy it because I know Cenk loves to do it, and he does it because he knows the fans love it too.
I'm Nina Turner, and we are on the road to revolution, baby.
Hello, somebody. And I know sometimes people talk about the angry black woman, but I'm gonna tell you something. If you ain't mad as a mofo about what's going on here, something is wrong with you.
When people ask me all the time, what are the lessons from 2020, is that progressives have to get more organized and we got to come together. We have to be as agile as neoliberals. The progressive movement has to understand that it's not just enough for us to have the right ideas. We are right on most of the ideas. We're not perfect, but we're 99% right because it is a humanitarian agenda, but we must get the power. We have to come together in a more unified way so that we utilize our power strategically to topple neoliberalism, and it's gonna happen.
I'll continue to sit. I'm gonna continue to stand with the people that are being oppressed.
The president labeled him a son of a bitch. I don't think it's good to be a distraction to your team.
To stand proudly for the national anthem.
You know, some of these people need to move to another country.
Well, you shouldn't be playing. You shouldn't be there. Maybe you shouldn't be in the country.
The president is put in place to amplify the racists in this country.
Black men and boys are killed at an exponentially higher rate than white men and boys, as outlined by PBS. Black people are most likely to be killed by police, found mappingpoliceviolence.org. Personally, my biggest gripe is not seeing how sports and politics have been attached at the hip. From the jockey syndrome, to the Negro Leagues, to Tommy Smith and John Carlos, Muhammad Ali, to modern day and everything in between. This is not an escape. It is a reflection of reality and a reflection of the times.
A dog on the White House lawn, would that be?
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member yet, the time has come for you to join now. We need you more than ever. tyt.com/change.
Welcome back to Indisputable. Let's read some of these viewer comments. Good stuff. All right. TYT member Mickey C. the Silver Hair Dragon says, how did the cop know it was a black male who called him? Was it a Zoom call? That was a good one. YouTube super chat. Nate says, when Karen Brain says floor, you must. Tempest Parham says, never heard of 911 asking for your race or gender. Yeah. Lateef Mins, how to catch a racist with Dr. Rashad Ritchie. Yep. About Karen, Freaky Squeaky says, I've fallen and I can't get up. All right, let's go to Twitch. Juul Spala. Yep, he wanted to humiliate them, go back to the precinct and brag to his buzz that he had what he had done that made him feel so good. Type atypical _RN. Oh my God, so dramatic. Ha ha ha. Yep. Fat guy named Tiny says she doesn't deserve the transphobia or abuse, but I will admit, I'm so glad to see people pushing back against her. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a great guest on the program, Dina Dahl, who is a legal analyst of news. We're going to talk about news of the day, Texas voters and parole rights. Dina, thank you for being on the show. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, doctor.
Absolutely. Now, I may be a little more radical than many. I believe purely that convicted felons should be able to vote. Most states have a way to restore your voting rights, and states that don't have a way to restore your voting rights typically allow you to vote after you serve your felony sentence of parole, probation, whatever it may be, and your rights are automatically restored, except in some cases that involve moral turpitude crimes, which could eliminate you from voting ever in your life. Now, here's the reason why I say I think people should still vote or be allowed to vote, because they are still paying taxes. And it's like paying rent in a home that you no longer have say-so over the operations of that home. If you're going to say they cannot participate in democracy, then go ahead and eliminate their mandate to pay taxes to that democracy. And I know I'm to the left of many people on that. But let's talk about voting rights specifically as it relates to Texas. What are your thoughts about Texas and them arresting individuals who are on parole, unaware that they can't vote because of a confusing bill and being charged with serious crimes?
Yeah, Mr. Rogers was discharged with 2 counts of second-degree felony, and he's facing up to 40 years in jail for placing 2 votes. The most recent one is 2020, and he went viral at the time because he was the last one to vote in his precinct. He stood in line for 6 hours, and the Texas code says that he had to have knowingly voted illegally. And obviously, he's talking to CNN. He thought he had the right to vote. So this seems like an egregious prosecutorial conduct on the Attorney General Paxton's part by prosecuting this case.
Yeah, it seems as if they wanted to make an example out of this very high-profile voter, because naturally he did not know it was illegal because he did interviews. He talked about standing in line, and a person that's already on parole, they're not trying to get back to jail, especially for engaging in a civic duty. So I think they tried to make an example out of this guy. And then there's another part of this story, the fact that Texas actually introduced a bill that would have made this okay, but that bill got squashed. So there's confusion as to what the Texas law is. And then there's another law that was presented that got killed as well. And this law said that the state of Texas will make sure we inform individuals directly if they are unable to vote, to make sure we lower the chances of a person not knowing, okay? And they said, no, we don't want that bill either.
Exactly, and ironically, it would have made it easier for the Attorney General to prosecute this case.
That's
because
right.
He would have said, hey, he was informed, but now it's going to be harder for him to prove. But the Attorney General also did something here by doing forum shopping, which is legal in the state of Texas. But instead of prosecuting this case where Mr. Rogers lives and where he voted, he's doing it 1 county over, and that county is more conservative and is more white. So to your point, that the disenfranchisement of the vote, which all other votes come from, to have this man who seems to have really made a mistake now facing possibly 40 years, what does that do to other voters who are confused about, their voting rights and their eligibility?
Talk more about the county hopping ability of an attorney general and why that's important to understand in the context of prosecutorial conduct.
Like I said, it is legal here, but talk about whether or not it's ethical, because the fact is he's not going to be, if this continues and he does face a trial, he's not going to be having a trial of his peers. It's not where he lives. The Attorney General purposely is choosing it to be where it's, I think Montgomery County is where he's doing it. It's about 85% white versus Harris County where he lives. It's about 58% white. So that's a big difference there. I mean, there's probably many other ethical things. We know the Texas legislature is bringing up a voting rights bill. We know that Attorney General himself is under an investigation himself and may be disbarred. So you wonder about this high-profile case, this man who went viral and facing 40 years. And it's really sad because it sounds like he's trying to make a point, but here's this man's life who's completely upturned about what really seems to be kind of an innocent mistake on his part.
And you gotta appreciate the irony here. You have a Texas Attorney General who believes in the big lie, who supported Donald Trump, who supported their efforts to overturn the election, which was rooted in a constitutionally mandated process and democracy. He stood against that process. And now he's prosecuting individuals who, by statute, by the language of the statute, must have been aware that they were committing a crime to even be prosecuted in the first place. And all of the evidence here points to the fact that this man was unaware that he was actually breaking a Texas law.
Exactly, and that knowledge, they didn't, when they wrote the code, they did not want to be prosecuting innocent mistakes. I mean, it's a second-degree felony, up to 20 years. The intent was to prosecute people who were intentionally committing a fraud in the voting system. So that requirement of knowledge really does not appear to be here. He conducted so many interviews at the time. So, you have to wonder if there's some sort of prosecutorial misconduct by even bringing a case like this.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely selective. And as you said, it actually violates the spirit of the law, because the spirit of the law was aimed at penalizing bad actors who were egregious and intentional in their mens rea, the formation of criminality and the intent to commit a criminal act. We thank you so much, sister. Tell people how they can follow you and check you out on social media.
Yeah, on social media, I'm AskDinaDoll1, Twitter.
Awesome. Beautiful analysis. Thank you for the breakdown.
Great
we got
to be
more.
here.
It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
So a lot of progressive office holders are doing something fun. I like fun. They're doing the last 2 years in 2 minutes. Okay, we're gonna try it here. First, I wanna let you guys know about the years before that. Hey, remember, we started the Just Democrats here on the Young Turks. It was officially launched on our air, basically by you guys. And then we featured AOC, we featured Cori Bush, and Ro Khanna became the first ever Just Democrat incumbent, all on the Young Turks. Now, the last 2 years have been a spectacular follow-up to that. So let's put the 2 minutes on the clock and do this. Young Turks got to start back in 2002, and I think we've been an important part of the progressive movement ever since. What we mainly do is amplify the progressive voice and candidates out there, and I think we've done a pretty good job. Right now, we're currently #1 most engaged news politics network online, beating CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC, all of them. We're #1 in total minutes watched. That means not only the number of people watching, but how long they watch. We just crossed 20 million followers and 500 million monthly views. Now, why? That's because actually the country's progressive. It's 2/3 progressive. And you guys have allowed us to be your voice, and we're incredibly thankful for that. So what did we do with that voice? Well, let's look at 2019. We went all over the country talking to you guys and the candidates. So we were in Miami, we were in Detroit, we were in Houston, and we were in Iowa. In fact, we were all over Iowa. You guys were all over Iowa, and all of the candidates saw you guys. We had wonderful people speaking, like the one and only Nina Turner at our rallies. Bernie Sanders stopped by, Andrew Yang, Elizabeth Warren. We interviewed almost everyone on the campaign trail, with the exception of Biden and Buttigieg. And we held them accountable. We even did a progressive economic pledge, and so many wonderful people signed on to that. Bernie Sanders, Warren, Marianne Williamson, AOC, the entire squad, Justice Democrats, and so many others. Now, on top of all that, we started a show called The Conversation, where we featured so many progressive thinkers, writers, and candidates. And one of the candidates we featured in 2019 was Jamal Bowman. Here comes Jamal Bowman. Then we had an amazing 2020. We hired a climate reporter. Damage Report passed 500,000 subscribers. Young Turks passed 5 million subscribers. We're getting the message out to more and more people. Bernie Sanders comes on in the heat of the primary. He comes on after the election to say what we're gonna do for the future. And then Marie Newman wins. Jamal Bowman wins. Cori Bush wins. And then just when you thought it couldn't get any better, here comes Nina Turner. Hello, somebody. And she's running for Congress, and she comes on the Young Turks first. On election week, we had nearly 2 million hours of viewing. We're #1 destination for progressives. You made all that happen. This is amazing, and thank you for those 2 years. What, I went past 2 minutes? Of course!
Viewers had asked for an interview with the TYT Lizard. Mr. Lizard. Oh, you changed colors today. Nice. I don't even know how you feel about us. Do you even like us?
Well, you guys made me this awesome house, so I'm kind of in your debt. I was found outside on the street, and you gave me a home. Granted, it was a really crappy home for a while, but then through the power of fundraising, I became a person who has a multi-level Trump-style mansion.
You do. By the way, you never looked better, man. Normally, you're just green or just brown, but today you're in mid-lizard, right?
I'm not very smart. I'm a lizard, so I don't know how the science works. I guess this is just my mood. It's not every day that thresholds like this are broken. I'm just so excited. I can't contain my pigmentation.
And now you're showing it off.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never seen the lizard like this before.
Welcome back to Indisputable. Let me read some of these viewer comments. Hot and heavy stuff. TYT member Mickey the Silver Hair Dragon says, "Oh, this is a nice little meme. I wish we could put this meme on the screen. I like that. Indisputable, calling out Karenicity. Yes, part of my life's work." Mickey C the Silver Dragon also said, "Bruce Bartman admitted that he voted for Trump in both of his dead parents' names. He did it knowingly. He was given probation. Guess what his ethnicity is?" YouTube super chat. Rankis Gamer. They are going to be heavy-handed on him to protect gerrymandering. If anyone can vote anywhere, then they don't get to select their voters anymore. Shaking my head. Black Piggy said, "Doc Love, hearts 100. Thank you. Back to you as well. Twitch. Granny Dragon says, "This is so wrong," and it is very wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the bullpen. In the bullpen today, I have Mr. Ash Wright, who is a national Republican strategist. We're going to talk about border security and immigration policy at large. Mr. Wright, thank you for being on Indisputable.
Absolutely, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be back.
All right, let's first talk about border or immigration policy. Let me start with immigration policy. I find it quite ironic, and I want you to tell me your thoughts about this. I find it quite interesting and really adversarial to democracy when you have a policy in the United States of America that criminalizes individuals who are simply trying to work. Yes, they are undocumented, but then you ignore the people who hire them. So roughly 90% of undocumented workers are here for work. You would agree with that, right?
Right. I think most of them, that's their goal. That when they come over, they want to ultimately work and try to contribute to society. Part of what I think the problem is here is that, and look, I'll admit that sometimes Republicans don't come at this from a standpoint of compassion, and we need to. That we need to be able to allow things like H-1B1 visas. If you're going to be here, you need to be able to get those, and you need to be able to get those efficiently. I think right now in California, it takes over a year to apply if you're going to extend that. And right now, it's only at 6 years. We need to have a better immigration policy, and we do need to come at it from a standpoint of helping families, young men that are trying to raise families, that are working hard. We are lacking a huge shortage in our agriculture committees. I think there's or our agricultural fields, there's a huge opportunity there. But yeah, absolutely. I do think that it's not fair to target the immigrant that is here illegally. They need to be documented. They need to go through the process. But it also isn't fair to ignore the workers that are hiring them. And they should have to pay penalties just like everyone else for the crimes that they commit when hiring undocumented workers.
But see, let me show you what you just did, Ash. You made a distinction that makes a difference and is really rooted in hypocrisy. You see the way you dealt with the companies that hired them? You said they need to pay a penalty. They need to pay a fine. You don't say that about the brown folks who are trying to simply work and make a living, even though the same federal statute that says it is against federal law to work undocumented in the United States of America, the subsection to that statute also said it is illegal for the company to hire them. So why should one receive a criminal penalty, and in your narrative, the company who attracted them, who pays them, who hired them, who signed off on them, why should they then receive a civil penalty only?
Right. Well, I mean, frankly, because it's when you come into the country illegally, you're breaking a federal law. Most times when you hire illegal immigrants and you're not paying their taxes, you're typically breaking a state law. And so there are different penalties for different laws that are broken in the US. And there are times when certain penalties need to have more stricter punishment. If a person is trying to run their business and they can't find labor and they go out and hire an illegal immigrant, both parties are benefiting from that. And it's what I'm advocating is I'm not advocating for the arrest of the migrant or the illegal immigrant. I'm saying that they should be given an opportunity to apply for immigration status, to come forth, be brought out out from the darkness, repay taxes at the same taxes that I want the company to also repay for. But I'm not advocating for them to be arrested. If they're in the country and they're contributing to society, to have a job, they're supporting their family, they're sending their kids to school, they're keeping their kids out of the foster care system, et cetera, everything else. And I don't think there should be a criminal penalty. I think there should be a financial penalty, because I think everyone, just like me, just like you, needs to pay their fair share of wages for the government to operate, especially when they're using some of our benefits like roads, et cetera. But I'm not advocating for a criminal penalty against them. I'm advocating for a financial penalty against the business owner and the illegal immigrant.
Okay.
In this situation.
Gotcha. You said some things that I can actually agree with. I do think that there's unfair treatment as it relates to how companies are able to get away with a civil penalty, and individuals who are simply trying to make a better life for themselves and their children are treated by the criminal justice system. But I want to correct you on one factual point. The federal law, and I'm going to read the federal law to you, because it's not about if they're paying taxes federally or state, and it is not an issue of state law versus federal law. If you look up US Code 8, subsection 1324A, this is the unlawful employment section. And it says, and I quote, "It is unlawful for a person or entity, meaning a company, to hire or recruit or refer for a fee for employment in the United States an alien, knowing the alien is unauthorized with respect to such employment." This has to do with not only the action of hiring them, this has to do with the action of recruiting them. And the question is, if companies have always been in violation, brother, of Section 8, subsection 1324A, if they have always been in violation of that federal code, why is it that when we see 600 undocumented hard workers being arrested at a factory, why don't we see the hiring manager being arrested? Why don't we see the CEO being arrested? Why don't we see the HR director being arrested? Why don't we see the recruitment director being arrested? Explain the reason. You know the reason, you just don't want to say it. But I'm challenging you, brother. Tell us why there's such a difference.
Well, look, the difference is because the difference is because they and their company is paying some form of taxes. It may not be on those 600 workers. They should be paying their Social Security income. And in fact, a lot of times they do is what they'll do is they'll fill out their documentation, leave their Social Security off, and the company will continue to pay as if they're getting those Social Security benefits. Even so, they're essentially tricking the system. They're saying, look, I know this person isn't a US citizen, but I'm going to pay in as if they are and essentially turn a blind eye to it. But look, if there are companies out there that are genuinely hiring 600 people and they're coming in and they're making big bucks and they're arresting 600 employees, yes, absolutely. The owners and the managers that know that it's going on should face the same criminal offenses. They should be arrested just like everybody else. I'm not advocating that the business owner, just because he owns a business and he is, what I think you're wanting me to say is like he's contributing more to society. But I'm saying, look, if he is doing that and he is criminally and against the law, then yeah, arrest that guy every day.
Yeah, so here's the reason why, and you actually proved my point, because you're right. They're not only violating the federal law of the recruitment and hiring aspect of that statute, they're also engaging in tax evasion. That's what that is when they refuse to pay the proper taxes based on the individuals who work at the company. But the reason, brother, is because these companies or the CEOs, they have influence. They have influence with politicians. They have influence with heads of state. They have influence with the president. They have influence with them. You can't forget that the guy who was president inside of your party, Donald Trump, he hired undocumented workers as well. And it was a big deal during the first time he ran for president. But somehow you all conveniently forgot that he definitely did when he started to attack undocumented workers in the United States, even though he himself, through his own company, hired undocumented workers as well.
Right. I mean, look, yeah, Donald Trump hired illegal immigrants, but this isn't a problem that has existed just during the Donald Trump years. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a problem that's been a problem for decades, going back to George H.W. Bush, to Barack Obama, George W. Bush. I mean, this isn't an administration issue where we can just pick and choose certain years in the U.S. I mean, business owners have been getting away with this. Agricultural business owners and farmers have been getting away with this for years. And I'm not what I'm advocating is I'm not advocating for it to be okay for Republicans to do this, but what I'm saying is there has to be a fair law, right? So when we say, look, if you're a DACA recipient, then you get all these extra years and you get all these opportunities to be in the U.S. versus someone that's trying to apply from a country that's not in South America and come over on a H-1 visa, et cetera. Like there needs to be a level playing field for the business owner, and he should face the same consequences. But there also needs to be a level business owner, a level playing field for people that are outside the U.S. trying to get in versus just trying to service people that are already in the U.S.
You know what country is the #1 violator of overstayed visas in the United States, which is also against federal law?
I believe, is it Honduras?
It's Canada. Canada. The reason why I bring that to your attention is because have you ever heard a politician say, we need to crack down on Canadians in the United States?
Never have.
Never have, and you never will. You never will, but do the research and you will find that they are the #1 violators of overstaying their visas in the United States of America. But you have never heard a social narrative, a media narrative, or a political narrative adversarial to Canadians. But I promise you, if the #1 violators would have been a black or brown country, that will be front and center in the political debate that we have nationally in this country. Let me take you to a myth, because I hear one of the arguments often is that undocumented individuals, they take more than they bring to the United States of America. Do you want to talk about that? Because I kind of heard you hint at it as far as benefits, et cetera. Do you believe that undocumented workers take more away from the government, or do they give more back? Revenue-wise?
Well, I mean, obviously, if they're not paying taxes and they're not on the books and they're using any sort of government benefit, then they are obviously taking more than they are giving. I mean, that there's no way to say that they're giving more if they're not on the books, because the simple term of being undocumented means that you're not documented. When you get a paycheck, you're getting a check in cash, or you're getting a check from your company, but you're cashing it at a quick cash shop that's, at Walmart or whatever. You're not actually going down and putting that in where you're paying taxes. That's the whole point of them being undocumented. But But when it's different when you look at it just in a financial term. Yeah, absolutely. If they're not paying into taxes and they're using any sort of service, they're obviously taking more than contributing. When it comes to a societal point, for example, I was in my research for this, I was reading about a DACA recipient in San Antonio who came over here when he was 9. They moved him from Mexico. His parents were illegal. He went to school. He used, obviously, public school, used our benefits, but now he's contributing back as a software engineer and, legal citizen here, full citizen, dual citizenship in Mexico and here. I think that's where they begin to give back. And that would be the ultimate goal for what everybody in America should want. But if you just boil it down to day after day, if they're not paying taxes and they're using our services, if they're going to the doctor, if they're going to an emergency room, if they're driving on our roads, they are essentially using more than they're contributing.
And I understand that's your feeling, but let me read to you a fact. The National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, they did the research. They actually compounded the data, analyzed the data, and they had some outcomes. Now, to me, it is a tragedy that those who support immigration policy, or those who support undocumented workers becoming documented through a fair, legal, and right now process, do not know this. But according to their research, what they found is that in general, undocumented immigrants still, with all of the finagling in the system, they still pay an estimated $11.6 billion a year in taxes in the United States of America. And that's also
Is that through sales taxes?
Oh, hold on. Well, that's a combination of all taxes, correct? And that is, and let me tell you who decided to second that notion. The Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy. They agreed with those numbers. So you have two organizations that are typically adversarial in their political ideology agreeing that undocumented immigrants literally put more into the taxation revenue in the United States than they could ever imagine of taking out. So the problem is there's this false narrative that undocumented workers do not create a positive bottom line for the United States of America. That is contrary to the actual data of the economic reality. They create more revenue than they could ever take out. Why do you think the narrative is contrary to the truth?
What makes you think they could? How much do they take out? I mean, did they study that? I mean, it seems interesting to me that you say more than they ever could take out. But what's that hard number? If we know the hard number they put in,
yes, sir. They take out roughly $6 billion a year.
And that's based on, is that based on when they go to a medical clinic and they receive medical with no care, like how do they document how much an undocumented person is using in our system, right? My point is is like if you go to the doctor's office and you're undocumented and you get free healthcare and it's not documented because they are documented, how do they know how much they're actually using?
According to the data, they analyzed various social safety nets, including hospitals, clinics, welfare. They also looked at various programs in K through 12 education and other programs that typically are considered benefits from the government. So that's their analysis tool.
I mean, look, I'd have to look into the study. I find it hard to believe that we can pinpoint exactly how much undocumented workers are contributing financially.
Ash, listen, brother. How many undocumented people are in the United States? Let me ask you that question before I make this point.
Look, I'm from Texas, so I can talk to you specifically about Texas. There are 1.7 million people that we believe undocumented.
How do you know that?
That we know about.
How do you know that?
I mean, a lot of research, but look, the numbers probably
the same. Basically, right. The same data that you use to make your point is rooted in an undocumented class of individuals, which means your data is not going to be pinpoint accurate.
Right, it can't be right.
And you're okay with and you're okay with representing the number of undocumented workers based on similar science that the Economic Institute and other entities have to use, but you want to question their data without challenging your own. It doesn't make sense to me. Either you accept the fact that it's not going to be pinpoint accurate, and we have these general numbers that say one thing overwhelmingly. And here's what it says: undocumented workers put more into the economy of America than they take out. So let's start there because that's obvious in the data.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's very difficult for me to believe. I would have to read that study. I find it very difficult to believe that we are able to pinpoint how much undocumented workers are bringing in and putting into our system. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. What I'm saying is I find it hard to believe, and I would need to read the study. I also am not saying there are exactly 1.7 million illegal immigrants in the state of Texas. I personally feel like there are probably a lot more than that. Those are just the ones that we know. And a lot of that is determined based on arrests, right? So we know that they make 3,500 arrests every day at the Texas border of illegal immigrants trying to cross. And so that is what they do is they multiply that out and they do studies, but none of this is an exact science because obviously we don't know. And frankly, we never will be able to know what they are. Once their students are enrolled like in a DACA program, things like that, we can actually study and know those and be able to work with it. But all of this, none of this is an exact science.
Let me ask you this question. I only have a few minutes before the end of the program. I believe that in order to make this work, you must have an amnesty program for those who are already in this country. If you don't start with that, you're never going to get a solution because one, you don't know where they are. You don't know how many actually are here, and you're not going to have the manpower nor the political covering as long as I'm here to round up undocumented, hardworking human beings. If you're not starting with the conversation of direct amnesty, you're just talking malarkey. Do you agree with me on that?
I believe you got to start with two pillars. You got to start with border security. You got to stop allowing illegal immigrants to come in. And then you have to provide some sort of path to citizenship for people that are currently here. What we can't do is allow a path to citizenship for people that are here and continue to incentivize people for crossing our borders illegally. And look, there are a lot of steps that need to be taken in this process of allowing a path to citizenship. Okay. And I made some notes for you. We need to extend, as I mentioned, the H-1B1 visas. So a 6-year process is not long enough. I hope that Congress
Okay, looks like he froze. Let's try to get him back. Do we have him back yet? I wanted to hear his list. I wanted to hear his plan. We're at the end of the show. I definitely understand the point you were trying to make. I hope we can get you back on very soon. Sorry that we had a technical issue, but we're at the end of the program. And ladies and gentlemen, I want you to remember a few things. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of the planet. And remember, the truth is always indisputable.